Welcome to the Jaybefaunt channel. I am your host, James Fauntleroy. So good to see all of you here on this beautiful Tuesday afternoon. The Jaybefaunt channel is available on all major podcast platforms, so go ahead and subscribe there. Also part of Revolutionary Blackout Network, so you can find me there on Sundays and Thursdays. If you have not already, please make sure go ahead and give the stream a like. That pushes me out into the algorithm so that I can be available for more of you that are watching this day and onwards. If you guys have not already, you guys can go to my Substack at jaybefaunt.substack.com. That alerts you of email notifications whenever I go live, upload clips, or have any articles, so you guys have that there. Also, I just wanted to give a huge shout out to my comrade Nick of RBN. Really quick, I just wanted to do this before we get officially started. Wanted to share this tweet that was put out yesterday, I think it was. But Nick of RBN is actually going to be speaking at this event at University of Kansas. So I just want to share this really quick so that you guys have this as well. He'll be speaking at the University of Kansas for the Green Party. And so if you guys would like to, you guys can actually tune into that. Of course, after this interview, if you would like. But Dr. Jill Stein will also be there as well. I think they started about half an hour ago. But thank you so very much. Just wanted to shout that out as well. So if you're in the Kansas area, you can go there as well. So thank you so very much. Now, what are we talking about today? Well, we have a guest, a special guest with me today. He is running for the congressional seat in South Carolina against Jim Clyburn. We have Marcel Dixon joining me today. Good to see you and good to have you on the channel finally.
Thank you so much for having me, James.
Yeah, definitely. So one of the things that I've seen you on Savvy Sabs. Of course, she's one of my comrades and colleagues on Revolutionary Blackout Network, and she asked you some very, very poignant questions. And from what I know is that this is your second go around for running for office as well. Now, in my mind, I set you up in my head as the reparations candidate, right?
Yes.
It's, and I think it is pretty apropos, because that's one of the primary things that you talk about: reparations for American descendants of slaves. American descendants of slaves being people like yourself and me, right? We're both American descendants of slaves. So one of the and I know, and I've actually had this discussion with reparations activists from the Negro Collective a couple months back, actually, with people like Khalif Mitchell and Jamin Mason. If you would like to, I can also give you the link to that. But they actually were talking about the necessity for reparations and why it's so important. And so I also feel the same way, that reparations is a necessary debt that is owed to those of us who are descendants of slaves as well. But one of the things I wanted to go at is from a different angle. And I think I saw you answer this on Twitter the other day, but I would like for you to answer this for my audiences too.
Okay.
So there's one question that I didn't get to ask them, but I wanted to ask you, is how would you respond to people, particularly a lot of white Americans, who say that there were Black slave owners? They ask, why should we give reparations if there were also Black slave owners? And then they also would say that, well, some slaves were sold to European colonizers during the Atlantic slave trade as well. Why should we give reparations to you if they were sold by some Africans? What say you to that argument?
Well, first of all, I always have to remind people or educate people that reparations for freedmen, the descendants of emancipated people, those emancipated by the American government, is not an issue based on race. It's based on status. That's the way reparations has always been done in this nation. When they did reparations for the enslavers, they didn't say all white people get reparations. They just gave it to the white enslavers who were located in the DC area. When they did reparations for Native Americans, there's no one set of settlement for all Native American. It depends on that particular tribe. Okay, the Choctaw gets completely different settlement or rights than do the Navajo. It's based on their tribe, which is a status. When the intern Japanese were put into concentration camps, they did not give all Japanese people in the U.S. reparations. They didn't give all Asian people in the U.S. reparations, even though anti-Asian hate has been a real thing in the U.S. They gave it to those of the status who were formerly interned. And people like to say, well, those are the ones who are wrong. No, because by the time they did it in the 1990s, the bill was signed into law in the 1980s, but by the time they did it in the 1990s, some of those intern Japanese were dead, and therefore it went to their descendants. So reparations is not based on race. All of the people who enslaved our ancestors could have been black, and yet the debt that is owed would still be the same. To answer the second part, it does not matter that the fact that, okay, some enslaved people were sold to Europeans or sold to other nations. It's funny. We're starting here in America. A lot of Americans like to talk about American exceptionalism. And yet, all of a sudden, that exceptionalism vanishes when you start holding America accountable. All of a sudden, they want to say, well, what about them? What about them? Wait, I thought we were exceptional, right? So reparations is not a new thing to the U.S., and the U.S. wants to be exceptional. You don't have the right to point fingers at another nation, because the truth be told, if those other nations participated in chattel slavery, then they owe reparations to the people they enslaved, as America owes reparations to the people they have enslaved. And the fact that America has done it before, they're even doing it right now, and yet they don't do it for the people who they have deprived the most, terrorized the most. That speaks volumes.
You got a point there. So yeah, as far as one of the points that I wanted to point out is that Jamin Mason and Khalif Mitchell were they argued this very well, is that also reparations would be a lineage-based program. Meaning that there are some black people that wouldn't get reparations, and there may be even some people who passed as white that would get reparations based on their lineage that a lot of people don't realize. So you may have some people that might be, and we in the black community that might be high yellow that might end up getting reparations. People like we're probably around the same age, right? I mean, we look good, but we're probably around the same age, right? So people like Sinbad, who's high yellow, would get reparations, right? Versus somebody who's really dark skinned, who may have came from Mozambique, who came here maybe like 20, 30 years ago, wouldn't. So I think that's the point. And I think that's something that's lost among a lot of white Americans, or as I like to say, European Americans. Because the thing is that, they think that it's all based on just your skin color, when in reality it is not. And so I wanted to ask that question as well. And then you brought out how a lot of former slaves end up buying their family members back so that they could free them as well. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say exactly. People like to talk about these black slave owners. All the enslavers could have been black, would not make a difference. But the few, and was a very, very, very small number. I believe it was less than 1% that did enslave others. They were often buying friends and family members, because that was the only way to free them. Because if you have to buy your freedom, then you are definitely not free. Okay? I'm less angry at the individuals, and I'm more upset with the system. And that is why one of the reasons why I ran for office, because these individual approaches, these little piecemeal approaches, they do not work. We need systemic change in this nation, because we have systemic problems that have yet to be addressed.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And so that's really the crown jewel of your policy positions, is really a reparations. And one of the things that you said, and I actually have your website here that I would like to show, is that you I think you say it in the beginning. You said something to the effect of here it is. Yes. You said not doing reparations hurts all Americans, according to one study. Since the year 2000 alone, anti-Black racism has cost the United States $16 trillion. And if I'm correct, wasn't that $16 trillion figure also repeated by Dr. Sandy Darity in From Here to Equality about the amount of reparations that we should be owed at the very minimum? Am I correct in that?
You're correct. He usually says a minimum of 20 trillion, and that's just to close the wealth gap.
That's just to close the wealth gap. That's not including all the free labor, including the mass incarceration, including the redlining, including the murders that have happened at a mass scale that a lot of people don't want to talk about, like cities that are put underwater, neighborhoods like Seneca Village that were mowed down to replace it with Central Park in New York. These are all the different things that a lot of people don't talk about in regards to what we are owed. Everybody seems to go all the way back to slavery, but it's slavery and not slavery or. And I think that's something that's important. You continue, it says, it goes without saying then that just as U.S. Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina stated, the thriving Black America is a thriving America. Hence, the motto of my campaign, Repair Black America to Save America. I mean, could you have an America without those of us who have been enslaved?
No, we could not. And, it's funny how you have these people who are Confederate sympathizers, they're always trying to say, well, y'all didn't build the nation. We all built the nation. Obviously, America is the product of multiple people, but America could exist without, maybe some of these European immigrant groups. America would never have came into existence without the labor of our ancestors. And that's just a fact. And what I always say to people, if we did not build the nation, if we were not necessary for the construction of this nation, then why is it that you who sympathize with the Confederacy, then why is it that the Confederate fought to keep slavery? Why is it the argument to keep slavery was that the nation needed it because the nation relied upon it because it's what built the nation? That was literally the argument that was made about why slavery should not be abolished. The argument was that the United States of America needed slavery because it was essential to the construction of America and to the maintenance and continuation of America. Yeah, and then all a person has to do is just look at the history of some of our major institutions, from our banks, from our schools, from our cities, from a lot of the first industries. The first source of significant wealth for the U.S. was not tobacco. It was rice. And that was all grown by enslaved labor right here where I live today on the coast of South Carolina.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and in fact, you had companies like Aetna, Wells Fargo. I think there were Wachovia back then. That were also intrinsic in slavery. A lot of these companies, even insurance companies, insured slaves so that when slave owners are enslavers, as we should aptly call them, when they lost a slave, then they got insurance money for that slave that has perished or died. And I'm not sure if you ever saw this lecture by Dr. Joy DeGruy, but it's called Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome. That she was talking about one of the groups that participated in the beating to death of slave children were white women. So it wasn't just the men, it was also the women, that are enslavers that also contributed to the deaths of people. It's just like what's it called? Wrongful death. If you believe in wrongful death lawsuits, then well, I think that you should be for reparations too. If you believe in actually suing people for damages, then you should be for reparations.
If you believe in inheritances, it always kills me when people say, well, you weren't enslaved, okay, and you who inherited your home, your land, your business, stocks and bonds, your great-grandparents did that, and you are inheriting it. So if you want to play this game that I did not inherit the debt that's owed to my ancestors, then you should not inherit the wealth that was left to you by your ancestors. If people want to play that game, then I challenge anyone who's against reparations right now to give up anything you have ever inherited, any source of wealth you have ever inherited. If you can inherit the wealth from your ancestor, then I have inherited the debt from mine. And I do want to emphasize, the people who did the wrong were majority white. Absolutely. But the wrong really falls at the feet of the federal government. They had a responsibility to protect, defend, and uphold our constitutional rights, and they did not do so. And as we just saw, I forgot the name, but there's a case where, unfortunately, a gym teacher was sexually abusing young ladies who were competing in the Olympics. They just ruled that the federal government owes those young ladies because they failed to investigate those claims. You see, the federal government is not just complicit in the wrong they enact, they are also complicit in the wrong that they do not act to defend and to stop.
Because that's their duty, right?
It's their duty. And they failed to do that with us for centuries. People like to focus on slavery, and that is when the debt begins. So like you said, a person just came here 30 years ago, you do not qualify for reparations. The debt was owed to us in the 1860s. That's when it started. And instead of this nation paying it, they decided to pile on with more anti-freedmen laws. It may have hurt everyone, but the target was your ancestors and my ancestors and their descendants. And it would not stop until the 1960s. And in some states, like here in South Carolina, they would not acknowledge the legislation until the 1970s. So the federal government failed to uphold and protect our constitutional rights. And it really kills me. I hear a lot of conservatives, especially white conservatives, but a lot of Americans say this about personal responsibility. We all support personal responsibility, correct? Well, if we support personal responsibility, then personal responsibility should not just begin and end with American citizens. It also needs to be applied to the American government. And they have a responsibility to repair the damage they have caused.
But I want to take your point a little further, because everybody talks about personal responsibility, but nobody wants to talk about community responsibility. And community responsibility would mean that if you are benefiting from a system that has given you privilege above others, then that means that you also have a responsibility to help uplift the people who have been left behind as well. Meaning, if you actually care about this entire country as a whole, then you will want to bring up everybody else as well. There was I was sharing this, I really should pull it up, but there was a video of different civil rights leaders that were sitting around, and I actually played this when Savvy Sabs, she was on a couple of weeks back. But one of the things that James Farmer said was that because we have been treated in a special way from a negative sort in the past, we now have to be treated in a special way and a positive sort to reestablish that balance. So I liken it to it like this. You know how everybody says, oh, well, a rising tide lifts all boats, right? But what if some of those boats are under the water and at the bottom of the ocean?
Or what if you threw certain people who had every right to be on that boat, who built those boats in the water, and they're being drowned by that rising tide, but you would not have been able to stay afloat without their labor? I also want to say Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. pretty much expressed the sentiments you're expressing now decades ago. He said a nation that did something special against the Negro for 300 years now must do something special for the Negro to compensate for those 300 years. That's exactly the whole point of reparations. A lot of people like to say, well, that's in the past. Well, so is the Constitution. So are we going to pick and choose when we want to ignore things in the past and we want to honor and respect things in the past? This country really took a vow to repair the damage they did to us. That was what Reconstruction was supposed to be about. And they failed and they abandoned it. And I always say, and I talk to a lot of white conservatives, they say, well, that was long ago. So I say to them, are you saying that you feel comfortable living in a country that owes a debt to a certain group of people, and all they have to do is just say, well, I'm not going to pay it, and that's it? And then they just have to sit and wait for those people to die to be absolved of the debt and responsibility that they have? If you are saying that to the government, you better be careful, because what are you telling the government that they can do to you?
Exactly. But also, let me add on to this. They can do a Marshall Plan for Europe, but they can't do a Marshall Plan for their own people here.
Exactly. And Asia. They did a Marshall Plan. They didn't call it that, but they did a Marshall Plan for Asia. Just look at what they did when they built the economy of South Korea and Japan.
Yeah. So, I mean, why is it okay for us to do that to other lands, but it's not okay to do that for people here? So, I mean, I know the answer to that question.
Right.
I think people should really be asking themselves these questions. I think they're very pertinent to exactly what's going on right now, because especially what's going on, we have sent billions and billions of dollars to Ukraine and Israel. What in the world? Like, we are willing to give billions and billions of dollars to foreign governments, but we don't want to do it to the people who we've harmed the most here at home.
And it's not okay, but let me tell you, silence really does give consent. So I speak to also a lot of white liberals, a lot. And I say to them, they say they are our allies. And yet every time I speak with them, they say, well, we have to take care of the issue in Palestine first, or we have to take care of the issue with people at the border first. It's always some other issue that comes before us. And yet our issues in this nation preceded all the other issues. They're not saying we have to wait for them to address before they get to us. No, like you said, if you truly believe and you have benefited from this country, and even people who are in the government, especially more with them, if you inherit any position of power in this country, you have an obligation to address whatever wrongs that government did and has yet to address. So it's not okay, but people give the message that it's okay when they are silent about it. And that's one of the reasons I'm speaking out about it so much more, because yes, I have other things on my platform, and yes, I was an advocate for reparations before, but I realized the problem has been the government. So therefore, the solution needs to be the government. I'm not saying we need the government to save us, but the government definitely owes us. And I'm looking at what our ancestors did. Right after the end of the Civil War, the first thing, and here in South Carolina, the first Black person elected to U.S. Congress was right here in South Carolina, and it happened shortly after the abolition of slavery. If our ancestors could do it in the 1800s, then do not tell me we cannot do it now in the 2020s. And truth be told, it's going to have to come from us. Yes, we can organize, and we should, but if we can organize to get legislation done from people who are in power, we can organize and become the people in power.
Okay, so one thing I also want to add is that a lot of times, a lot of white Americans will say, well, you guys are going to take money from me. And the thing is, one thing that was brought out from the Negro Collective, which I really appreciate, is that y'all ain't got no money anyway. So we're not really coming for you. One of the things that was brought out, and I appreciate this, and I'll send you the link to this site as well. It's called American Union Reparations. And this part is deeply informative. It says, whereas on January 16th, 1865, Special Field Order number 15 was a military order issued during the American Civil War by General William Tecumseh Sherman, commander of the Military Division of Mississippi of the United States. The Special Field Orders number 15 were fully enforceable by wartime law. They had the authority of William T. Sherman, the U.S. Secretary of War, Edwin M. Stanton, as well as the Republican President of the United States, Abraham Lincoln. Basically meaning that the reparations that is owed to us would be paid for by the War Department, or now as the Department of Defense, meaning that the money should actually come from the Department of Defense and the Pentagon coming to us. Now, if you want to talk about it, how much money did we spend just in the wars in Iraq and Iraq and Afghanistan?
Trillions of dollars.
That's our reparations money right there.
Trillions of dollars. And right now, the Pentagon, again, cannot pass a simple audit to account for $9 to $20 trillion. So when you add what we have spent on these wars and you add the Pentagon's budget, for which a lot of it they cannot account, that's trillions of dollars right there. And that's not even talk about the other budget expenditures this country has made. But I want to talk about that, how we're going to pay for it, because that's one of the main questions now. Now people are arguing less and less against if we should get paid reparations, because people know we are owed reparations. They know that there's precedent for it, legal, legislative precedent for us getting reparations. Now they try to make it seem that they cannot afford it. Well, let me say this real quick. If you owe me money, James, it's not my responsibility to come up with a way for you to pay for it. You owe the debt. That's your responsibility. However, we have to kill this myth. And again, I speak to a lot of white conservatives who will say, well, why aren't you against the federal government taxing us? Well, I am. There's plenty of federal taxation that I am against. And yet at the same time, they will acknowledge that the federal government does not need our tax dollars until I mention that the federal government can easily finance our reparations. Then all of a sudden, they want to tell me how the federal government relies on our tax dollars for spending. And the federal government does not. It's one of the biggest myths that we are told and that a lot of people believe is that the federal government needs our tax dollars and able to generate a budget. They do not. And people did like to tell me, what about debt? The truth of the matter is, and I'm just going to rely on the words of former President Trump. President Trump said that debt is not a bad thing. He said, I've made a fortune from debt. He said he could do the same with the government, and he's not lying. The federal government takes what they call debt and they turn it into government bonds, and they use it to generate even more money. That money never reaches the common American person, but it definitely reaches the federal government. That's how you have people who make $175,000 a year, and yet they're worth tens of millions of dollars. Another thing, when people talk about the deficit, the American government truly owes itself. And as you have seen time and time again, and I have seen time and time again, the American government cancels debt all the time when they want to. They've canceled war debt, and right now as we speak, they are canceling the debt for the PPP loans that will number into $1 to $2 trillion. They're canceling student loan debt, which, by the way, if they can cancel some of it, they can definitely cancel all of it. So we need to get out of this myth that the federal government cannot afford reparations. They definitely can. Yeah. Look at the, historically speaking, the New Deal. When President Obama took office, President Trump took office, those presidents spent a historic amount of money, and they did it at the time when the economy was historically depressed. So if federal spending relied on tax dollars, then how was Roosevelt able to do the New Deal? How was President Obama able to spend $29 trillion on bailing out the banks alone? It's only a myth. And it's only a myth that people like to use and a concern that people like to pretend they have when it's time for this country to pay the original debt that they owe to us. The federal government does not rely on tax dollars. Inflation is a concern. And the way you deal with inflation, my plan addresses that. You pay the money out in installments. And that is what my plan calls for. But as far as financing it, even President Trump said the federal government can never default or run out of money. And he's not the first person to say that. You have had many, many people who were the chair of the U.S. Treasury the Federal Reserve, who has said the same thing. It's something we all know, but the federal government will allow people to believe that they rely on that tax dollars for spending so they don't have to invest in the American people. But they never have that concern when it's time to finance wars and when it's time to bail out corporations. Then there is no amount of money. There is no limitation on what they will spend.
Yeah, that's true. In fact, in March of 2020, they actually pumped $4 trillion new money into the markets just to prop up the stock market. So where did that money come from? It's because the United States federal government is a currency issuer, not a currency user. Right. And so therefore, they actually have the ability to make the money. So when people say, well, government should be ran like a business is a currency user, meaning they have to take in dollars in order to use it. The United States government does not have to. It's like being a referee and saying, oh, well, you have to give the referee points in order to be able to issue out points. It doesn't make sense. So,
and not only that, though, James, these deficit hawks that usually exist on the right, notice how they're concerned about the quote unquote deficit phase away when it's time to bail out corporations, when it's time to finance a war or send aid to foreign nations. I was in Charleston the other day, and I just went there to eat, but it turned into people recognized me. They wanted me to give a speech, and I did. And I spoke with this guy. He was like, well, are you against sending aid to Ukraine? I told them, and he was like, well, because we don't send aid to Ukraine, we'll have World War III. And I said to him, do you know how a lot of nations like America collapse? They don't collapse from external forces. They collapse from internal forces. Okay? I said, we are so concerned about things that happen externally that we neglect the things that happen internally. We are so concerned about uplifting people in other nations. And don't get me wrong, I'm not against us helping others. But first and foremost, we need to help our own, because that is how nations often collapse, from the inside. And when you have a population that is saying they cannot afford to live, that is saying they're working 2 and 3 jobs and they're still barely getting by, that is saying they're struggling to afford enough to eat, you are setting yourself up from an eternal collapse.
I think that's one of the reasons why the U.S. is now in the position that it's in. We're losing as far as the hegemonic power. I would argue that the United States shouldn't be a hegemonic power in the first place, because the thing is that we should not be determining the world's standards. People should be able to do it democratically themselves. And so being the police of the world,
we don't have the moral high ground to be telling other nations how they should conduct themselves. You know what's funny? My great-grandfather, who just turned 100 last week.
Happy birthday to him, by the way. I wanted to make sure I said that.
I'm going to let him know when I go to see him. He is a World War II vet. I did some research on World War II. Do you know the first thing the U.S. made Germany do? They made Germany give back any property that they sanctioned from the people who were thrown to concentration camps. And they should have. I'm not against that. But the U.S. telling Germany, and by the way, the reparations Germany paid, that would not have happened if not for the U.S. and Great Britain. I'm not against that. However, how hypocritical for you to tell Germany and other nations they have to repair the damage they did to those who are survivors of the Holocaust and their descendants, but yet not do the same for people who are survivors or descendants of the people that you subjected to a Holocaust. And those are the freemen, the descendants of the people emancipated by the American government. You're right. Yeah. We don't have the moral high ground to be telling other nations how they should conduct their affairs when we definitely have to clean up our own house.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And so I think that was great. And so one of the things that somebody had asked, and I just want to make sure that I clarify this. Somebody said, Jaybefaunt, please ask Marcel to confirm that he's not running on the Democratic ticket. So you're running as an independent, correct?
I'm running underneath a third-party banner now. I'm running as underneath the party United Citizens Party, which is a third party here in South Carolina, established in the late 1960s for the sole purpose of getting more Black politicians elected. But not just because you are a black face. We have enough black faces. I'm running against Congressman Clyburn. That's a black face in a high place, but has done us no good. You have to have policies. And it's, yes, James, let me just say this. What helps Black America is going to help everyone. I tell white Americans and non-Black Americans that all the time. But the United Citizens Party, you have to have policies that are going to be specific, not necessarily Black people, but specifically to the freedmen, the Black Americans who are descendants of the enslaved and emancipated here in America. So no, I'm no longer running on the Democratic ticket.
Okay. Thank you so much for confirming that.
You're welcome.
One of the things that I wanted to go into, as far as your policies, I would like to move on to education. So according to the South Carolina Department of Education, and let me share this because I think this is really important, is that the education of, students in South Carolina is not doing very well. And really, you can attribute this to what's going on as far as the racial disparities. Let me see. Is this it? It should be. Yes. And so I wanted to share this. So this is out of the South Carolina Department of Education. And it's talked about the reading scores. And I want to go to grade 4 because grade 4 is typically
a bridge grade.
It's like the grade where you get to see how the trend continues on from there. And let me enlarge this really quick just so everybody can see very well. All right, there we go. That's better. So my old eyes can see this too. Okay. So if you look at here, it says there's number tested, does not meet expectations, or processes expectations and meets expectations. If you look at all students, it actually has about a third of students do not meet expectations, and then approaches expectations is 21.4. So really, you're at a point where you're over 50% of all students that does not meet expectations at all, right? They approach or don't meet expectations. If you look at it by race, and we're just going to focus on Black and white. So if you look at Black, it's 51.4 that don't meet expectations and 24.4 that meets expectations, versus the white student population that says 19.8 that doesn't meet expectations and 19.3. So there's definitely a race disparity there as far as the meeting of expectations just in reading as well. So I would like to go to your website, and you speak about education here. And I just have a couple of questions to ask and go over this. So you said develop a median state standard for each respective state to ensure that no school's funding falls beneath the median amount. Teachers' starting salary of $60,000 a year, and restrict class sizes to more than 22 students. Free breakfast, lunch, and nutritious snacks. Are you still a teacher, or are you a former teacher?
I am still a teacher.
Okay.
Public school teacher.
Nice. Okay. Because I like y'all. So
excuse me.
So why did you arrive at the $60,000 a year mark?
If you teach in South Carolina in the average school, excuse me, you have to be teaching for at least 12 to 13 years before you reach 60,000. That's ridiculous. Ridiculous. So I felt that 60,000 will be a very good starting point. And based off of the average cost of an apartment, a 2-bedroom apartment here in South Carolina, that way teachers will be able to at least be able to afford a place to live. barely, but they'll be able to afford one. I feel that even with that increase, those who are already making that should see an increase as well. So that's what I based it off of, the cost of living. And I feel that for a starting teacher, they will at least have a place to stay. It should be a lot higher than that. But I based it off that particular standard.
Gotcha. Okay, so thank you so very much. Now, the next one is drastically increase the number of guidance counselors and social workers. I think that's pretty much self-explanatory for the reasons, specified, because a lot of times we don't have students that have enough guidance counselors and social workers at these schools. I am a product of Florida schools, and pretty much every single school I've ever went to was predominantly Black. And so a lot of times, we don't have as many guidance counselors and social workers within these schools. So I think that goes without saying.
Well, let me say, it's not just for the students, it's for the students' families, but it's also for the teachers. The guidance counselors is one thing, but the social workers, oftentimes when people think of social workers, they think of them in a punitive sense. My vision is that the social workers will be there to help keep families afloat. We should not wait for people to be drowning before we lend them a hand. A lot of times people are barely making it. And then when they get to the point where they're really, really struggling to provide for their child, the first response is to take their child from them or to almost treat them as if they're criminals. My vision is that these social workers would be a line of support for families, but also for teachers. So that's and sometimes with behaviors. Look, I'm a very strict teacher. I do not tolerate disrespect and misbehavior in my classroom. However, sometimes what we view as misbehavior is just a child who's having some type of social, emotional issues, and they may just sometimes need someone with whom they can speak. They may just actually need to have their social, emotional needs addressed. So it's not really a behavioral issue as much as it is a social, emotional issues. And that right there will also be a way to support teachers, because one of the top reasons sometimes it is, or it's usually always number two, teachers are fleeing from the field, is because of disciplinary issues with students.
Well, also, it could also be a neurodivergent issue, which a lot of, Black kids are underrepresented when it comes to neurodivergent children, within the education system. I mean, if I automatically said, think of an autistic kid, you're going to think of a white kid. You're not going to think of a Black kid, especially Black boys and girls, right? I mean, I'm not sure if you were able to catch it, but on Club Shay Shay, Amanda Seales was talking about how she was diagnosed with autism. But the thing is that, how many, Black kids are, properly diagnosed, with, different conditions that are, neurodivergent. And so I think that also is a possibility that, a lot of people aren't taking into account as well.
Well, guidance counselors will definitely be able to assist with any of those type of processes, because, right, if there is an issue, we want to be able to see if there's an issue instead of automatically assuming the child is deliberately wanting to be an issue. And again, I'm a teacher who does not tolerate disrespect. I do not have my entire platform here. I want to make it easier to remove students who are chronically violent and disrespectful and disruptive to the educational process. Some people may not like that. Being a teacher in the classroom, I can tell you the majority of teachers would cheer for that, and you would immediately see students perform much better, because what robs a lot of students of a quality education is not all that the teacher's incompetent or that the teacher does not know what they're doing. It's a lot of times teachers spend more time dealing with discipline issues than not. And usually sometimes 1 to 3 students, the teacher may have them removed, and they're sent back to that teacher's class to continue to do the same thing, because for whatever reason, the school might be afraid of administrators, or there's a lot of reasons why that might happen. So we do need to make it to where the educational time in the classroom is protected. So while I do support having students get support, their families get support, I'm also going to support protecting the educational environment and not having teachers be held hostage to students who are chronically violent, disrespectful, or just plain out disruptive. And they are a bigger problem. A lot of people like to say, well, that's not that big of an issue. It's a very big issue. And anyone who's taught in schools will tell you it's a massive issue that does not get spoken of enough.
Well, also, I think that a lot of times when you have children that are disruptive in classes and things like that, it's really just indicative of what's going on at home. So, therefore,
Yes,
if you are able to improve the socioeconomic status of kids at home, then therefore, I think that the disruption will drop at a commensurate rate. Do you not think that?
I do, but also I've spoken with teachers who teach in areas that are quite affluent, and they are experiencing the same type of issues. I've never
Mm,
taught in an affluent school, but I have spoken with teachers who teach in areas that are resource rich, and they are telling me they're seeing the same type of misbehaviors. Now, the difference is, however, those families often have more access to support and resources than a family who is in poverty and are struggles or they barely get by and perhaps cannot afford to take their child to a counselor or cannot afford to somehow acquire other resources that a family that's more affluent will be able to do.
okay. Another one is required tax write-offs for all jobs that provide parents and guardians with time off to attend parent-teacher conferences. I actually think this is a good idea.
It should be happening already.
Yeah, I mean, to be able to, I mean, because the thing is like parent-teacher conferences to me are just as important as a doctor's appointment.
Yes.
You know, because it's really talking about the learning health of your child, and in turn also goes into the mental health of your child. So I think that's just as important. The next one here is I'm a little confused. It says mandate parental involvement of parents and guardians in their children's education. What does that mandate involve?
The mandate, of course, these are things that I'm going to consult with my fellow professionals and even speak with parents themselves to iron out. But what I can tell you is, as we have it now, a parent being involved in their child's education is almost something that is done on a voluntary basis, and it does not work. A parent can literally send their child to school. Their child can tear the school apart, and that parent has an option of whether they answer their phone or not. And while there are some parents who simply can't because they're at work, I can tell you, and a lot of teachers can tell you, that there are parents who are available who just choose not to answer. They're treating schools as if it's a babysitting facility, and it's not. So I like to try, of course, with the guidance counselors, social workers. There are other positions in schools like parent liaisons. I want to make them available to work with parents, to work with families. However, there has to be something there where the parent is held accountable about doing their part as well. I've looked at some different states that have introduced laws where parents, if they do not show that they're cooperating with the schools, can face a fine. Now, that is often a last resort. Those parents are often offered many different avenues of working with schools. It can be, sometimes shadowing their child, which is why I want to provide tax write-offs. If a parent has to do that, you don't want to make it to where the parent has to choose to be putting food on the table and caring for their child. However, there has to be something there to hold parents accountable, because right now, parents can volunteer or they can choose not to be involved in their child's education, and it does not work. You have some parents who literally will refuse to answer their phone. You have some parents right now who send their kid to school even when they know their child is suspended. And if a child is suspended nowadays in schools, it's usually for a pretty good reason. So there has to be something there where parents are mandated to show that they are working with the school to address the issues that their child is having. Right now, the main thing is that they have to make sure their kid comes to school. Yes, we want your child to come to school, but we also want your child to behave and cooperate with school staff.
Mm-hmm. I understand. I don't know. It's just the word mandate kind of rubs me the wrong way in that way, but I also get the your point as well. I'm still kind of on the fence about it, just from my personal opinion. But at the same time, as somebody that feels like parents should be more involved, I think that the stresses of having a system like ours also make it a lot harder for parents to be involved as well, which is one of the reasons why I said I like the suggestion of being able to write that off on your taxes. To be honest with you, I don't think we should have to wait till tax time. I think it should be almost like a written into jobs where you actually have parent time off, if you have kids, so
Let
that
me say
it can be
this.
different.
There's a high correlation between parental involvement, usually at home, and student success. And this cuts across all socio-economic statuses. And this is contrary to popular belief. Parents, Black parents who live in poverty, actually sometimes show higher levels of involvement with their child's education. So this is not something, I don't want to make it to where people who are already struggling to make it will now have a fine that they may not be able to afford. But I can tell you something has to be done with parental involvement in their children's education, because you can speak to any teacher and they will tell you it is severely lacking. And you can tell the difference between a child, even a child who may have behavioral issues. You can usually tell the difference where that parent is willing to work with a teacher and the parent who has just decided that's your problem. I've had too many teachers say a parent has told them, I'm the parent at home, they're your responsibility at school. Oh, no, I don't think so. That's your child, whether they're at school or whether they are in your house. So how that looks as far as the mandating it, that's something that I'll have to iron out. But I can tell you right now, it's something that has to happen, because I'm telling you, when parents are involved, not only does the child perform better academically, but their behavior, even if a parent cannot teach a child pre-algebra, their behavior. And when you have a child who's better behaved, that's a child who can be taught.
Understood. I want to move on to this next point. As far as education goes, he says, make vocational training, community college, and public universities tuition free for qualified for all recipients. I want to ask the question about, what do you mean by qualified for all recipients?
Well, what I mean is that the people who go to those schools, I really feel education, healthcare should be free. Let me be very honest. So a person who's qualified, I believe that certain schools, they cannot accept every single person that applies. So I want schools to still be able to have some measures of eligibility for their students. I don't want to say to school, you have to accept anyone and everyone that applies, because they only have a certain amount of seats. So schools will still be able to have their standards for eligibility. However, I do not want a person's economic status to be the reason why they cannot attend a school.
Okay. One of the reasons why I ask is as far as making it a standard of qualifying, to me that sounds like means testing, and means testing makes it, it's more difficult to maintain a public program, because those who are more economically disadvantaged are typically demonized, and it can shut certain people out who would still need the service, even though they technically make more or have those particular qualifications, they're above those qualifications. And so it also gives some people in government, namely a lot of conservatives, the opportunity to make it easier attempts to cut services like this that are not utilized by everybody. I feel like making vocational training, community college, public universities tuition free, regardless of financial status, would be a game changer for all, and it would make it more difficult for them to take away. So,
well, that's my plan. Regardless of financial status, it will be free of charge. What I am saying, however, is that a school should not be made to take just any student that applies. They still have a right to have assessments in place to see if that student is going to be able to meet the standards of their program. Because if you allow anyone who applies and the school automatically has to take them, then that means that school will run out of space for the other students who may very well be qualified for that program. So there are other measures a school can use. It doesn't, our financial ability will not be one of them, but there can be other abilities. Now, SAT, ACT testing, I have my feelings about that, but I still want schools to have some autonomy about who they choose to accept. But financial status, financial ability will not be one of them underneath my plan.
But wouldn't it be better just to have it as an optional and then just build more, secondary schools like colleges, universities and vocational institutions?
That is definitely a part of my plan.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to clarify on that one. So thank you very much.
Oh, yes.
There's one more that I would like to get to. And you put out a tweet regarding charter schools, school choice, that I would like to give some attention to. And if you don't mind, I can play this ad that you put out for a second, and then we'll talk on the other side.
Carolina has some of the lowest performing school districts in America.
The state education department released scores from end-of-course test results. The scores show students are failing 3 out of 5 subjects on the exam.
I went to one of them, the Jasper County School District. Wonderful teachers, but we can't put the responsibility on teachers to solve issues that society has yet to solve. That is the responsibility of everyone, the adults in the community, the children in the community, also the politicians who are elected to represent and provide for the needs of that community. However, our children trapped in failing schools should not be held hostage until we figure it out. I am for equitably funding schools. I am for paying teachers, support staff a lot more. I am for making it mandatory for parents to be involved with their child's education. But I'm also for giving more support to families. And part of that support is allowing the funding for their children to go to them. We can't say parents and guardians have the responsibility for their child's education, but then not give them the funding that is for their child's education.
I am Greg Marcel Dixon, and
so just to clarify, for what particular reasons do you support charter schools?
We need to have educational options. We have non-chartered public school districts that may not work for every child. And I feel like when we go out to eat, you have a variety of restaurants from which to choose. That might please your palate. Educationally speaking, charter schools are able to have charters that can cater to students who may not be getting served for it. That's not saying the non-chartered public schools are doing anything wrong, but they probably just do not have an environment that's meeting the need of a particular child. So we want to provide families more options that can meet their needs. I have taught at a charter school, and I've taught some of the students that I formerly taught at the non-chartered public school, and they flourish in the charter school environment. So I believe we need to have more options. I'm always a fan of us having options.
Okay. I have this particular video that I came across, and I would just like to get your thoughts on it. Because as far as charter schools are concerned, I do have my particular concerns regarding them. And this is something that, I have talked to other people who are in education as well, that I feel that should be hashed out. Of course, we're not going to agree on everything, but I think this is important to have a discussion about. This is an interesting point in this person's video.
But one thing that Abbott leaves unmentioned is the business of charter schools. While they are technically nonprofit, they often can be run by for-profit entities who receive all of the revenue generated by the school in a really gross loophole.
By law, charter schools must be nonprofit, but the schools can hire an education management company, or EMO, to run the school, and the EMO can try to make a profit. Brennan calls his EMO TAT management.
Education is first, last, and always a business. If it's run like a business, it can be done profitably.
Thank you, Doug Dimmadome, owner of the Dimsdale Dimmadome. These charter schools can be bought and sold like business assets, and the results rarely benefit students. Charter schools can close without notice and often try to cut costs by holding classes in even lower conditions than those Philly public schools. From an investigation by the Orlando Sentinel, quote, schools in Florida will collect nearly $1 billion in state-backed scholarships this year through a system so weakly regulated that some schools hire teachers without college degrees, hold classes in aging strip malls, and falsify fire safety and health records. In contrast with the way it simply portrays underfunding, Abbott Elementary definitely.
So that's some of the concerns regarding charter schools. And I do disagree that charter schools is a viable policy, because it essentially can leave some kids out, and it creates a two-tiered education system, which I don't think is fair to all students. And it puts our students essentially in the hands of private corporations. Even though they say they're nonprofit, they still do make a profit, essentially. So,
Well, yes,
sorry, go ahead.
definitely. Oh, yes. They're privately ran, but they're public institutions. All the issues that they just mentioned in this clip you played, with the exception of them being privately operated, all of those things happen in public schools as well. Ran down facilities, teachers being hired without proper certifications, because really it's becoming harder and harder now to find teachers for reasons that are societal. I do believe, however, that the same way that I want to finance the funding of more vocational schools, public universities, so that we can have more people who are given opportunity, if that's something we need to do for our people who are post-K to 12 education, we definitely need to do the same for our people who are K to 12. Now, as with all things, there needs to be accountability. Sometimes people introduce ideas and there's no accountability. There are some charter schools who are actually failing the students they serve, but they're doing the same thing that the non-chartered public schools have done. So accountability is lacking for both institutions. However, in the case of a charter school, and of course, like I said, my details have to be fleshed out more, but if they are to get federal support, then they need to have some federal accountability. You cannot be there getting $200,000, $250,000 a year, and yet the average student in your building is unable to read. There are too many charter schools that the students have shown growth, and that's wonderful. I celebrate growth, but at some point, you want to get them to the point where they are meeting the grade level expectations or exceeding the grade level expectations. It can be done, because I did it. I did it for years, many, many years. And it was very, very difficult, much more difficult than what it should have been. However, it can be done. So again, I believe there needs to be support for the non-chartered public schools and also support for charter schools. But there also needs to be accountability, because I can tell you, you will find many more non-chartered public schools where the kids are failing, they're being neglected, and kids are being left out. They might have to accept everyone, but I can promise you, not everyone is being adequately taught. And in some schools, it is so bad, you could almost say no one is being adequately taught. And that is not, as I said in the video, the fault of necessarily the teachers. Is not always the fault of the parents or the administrators or even the politicians, but they all have a responsibility to address the situation, even the students themselves. So I'm always going to be a fan of providing people with more options. And us, Black Americans, the public schools, the non-charter public schools, have never done right by us. If you look at the statistics coming out, we have been failed by these public schools since the days of integration. I want us to be able to have more opportunities. I want us to be able to start our own institutions, like Native Americans have their own tribal schools. I do not want any family held hostage to a school that is failing them. And then the child is held hostage until we figure out what's the problem, how to fix it. I experienced that as a child. My siblings experienced that as a child. Too many kids are experiencing that right now. So providing them with options, if there has to be a charter school, that's fine, but there also has to be accountability. Accountability is missing in society, period. But in regards to schools, it's missing when it comes to administrators, Teachers are the only people usually held accountable, as they should be held accountable, but they're usually held accountable for things beyond their control. There needs to be accountability for parents, and there needs to be accountability for students as well. And there needs to be accountability for politicians, the elected officials.
I agree with the accountability point, but one of the things that I would like to push back on is the fact that when it comes to charter schools, they're also taking some of that public money out of the schools, and then they are funneling it specifically a lot of times towards private corporations too. And so therefore that ends up taking the money out of the community. And a lot of these schools, like for ones that you and I went to, a lot of these schools are underserved and underfunded due to property taxes that pay for these schools. And so when you have a Black neighborhood, particularly, then a lot of times when the properties are appraised, they're appraised lower than what they should be because of the racism within the system. So therefore, that translates to having less school funding for schools. My question to you would be, would you be willing to transfer the burden from homeowners to make it the responsibility of Congress to finance all school districts proportionally according to need?
That is exactly what I say on my website. That's exactly a part of my plan. The truth of the matter is, it's not just that Black Americans, we are appraised, our homes are appraised at a lower value. The history of sharecropping and Jim Crow, the areas that are predominantly Black or significantly Black, they're going to have a very, very low tax base anyway because of things like redlining, where our neighborhoods were deliberately underfunded and neglected, and were deliberately had developers stay away from them. And when we built things like Black Wall Streets, they were burnt to the ground. So that's why I mentioned that I want to come up with a median amount. There will be some research that has to be done into this. And what if there's a county in a state that can exceed that median amount, then fine by me. But there should be an amount where we should be able to provide all schools with an abundance of resources. And if that local county cannot meet that, then the federal government that is quick to fund all these, bail out all these corporations and fund foreign nations, they can definitely fill in the blank. There's a way to support non-chartered public schools, and charter schools are public schools as well. There are ways to support our public schools that are non-chartered and both chartered. And as far as them funneling money to private corporations, the one issue with charter schools is that they're operated. There are some significant differences with the way they're operated in different areas. I don't know about that happening in South Carolina, but if that's something that happens, that's something that definitely needs to be looked into, because I am very unfamiliar with that particular thing taking place. However, again, I know people who are heads of charter schools who are making big money. They're just like the politicians. You know, they came in worth $70,000 and now they're worth $200,000, $300,000. And yet you look at the amount of kids according to tests. And by the way, tests are not always an accurate measure, but that's the world we live in. According to the standardized test, 69% of the kids are not reading on grade level, and yet they're getting away like a fat cat. And that happens in both non-chartered and charter schools. But yes, there are ways to support non-chartered public schools, but also to support educational choice as well. And I, for one, am not going to choose one or the other. I'm going to choose both, because I definitely know about which you speak. I live in Jasper County, South Carolina. At one point, it was one of the poorest areas in South Carolina. And South Carolina is and has always been, since the fall of slavery, one of the poorest states poorest states in the United States of America. And I went in an area where we had nothing. And yet the county right next to us, they had all sorts of programs that were offered to them. And while funding is not always the panacea that people want to make it out to be, it does matter. Because even when you have, you may have a program, and let's say the kids don't care nothing about the program, but if you live in a more affluent area, that's just networking opportunities that you're going to receive. If your school can offer certain programs, you are more likely to meet someone whose father might be a doctor, whose mother might be a lawyer. And those are networking opportunities that kids in more affluent areas get all the time, or just in better funded schools that a child like me did not get when he was in school. So you look up my area, you will see we're always in the news for academic failure, for behavioral issues, and some of that is due to lack of funding, but it is definitely not the only issue. The parental involvement, it's sometimes a reflection of larger societal issues. All of those things also have to be addressed.
Yeah, and just as another point is, like, for instance, the U.S. federal government actually funds DOD schools, Department of Defense schools.
Yes,
and they do very well with regards to education. My colleague Sabi Sav, she actually went to a DOD school, and so while I disagree with charter schools, I think that if we were to treat all schools like they do DOD schools, I think then we can uplift that without having to create a choice, because then it still allows for a second tier in my view. It's just like having, you know, having a Medicare for all who want it, right? It's like it puts, you know, two tiers of healthcare is basically saying the same thing, two tiers of schools, which ultimately you know, you can have one that's more heavily funded than the other, and it can lead to inequality that still remains. And that's one of the reasons why I am also against charter schools.
Well, I would say, unfortunately, charter schools are usually less funded than the non-charter public schools because they don't get the local tax revenue. They get a lot of their funding directly from the state, and the federal funding they get, the federal government does not really invest a lot in public schools. They invest in the USDA programs, and that's it. And I think we can do better than that.
Yeah, definitely. Funding for our kids is definitely a precedent.
It should be essential.
Yeah. I mean, really,
I'm sorry, I wanted to say real quick, and this may sound scary to some people, but I think a lot of your listeners probably know this. The government actually does not want an educated populace, because the point of public schools was supposed to be, at least one of their aims was to have an educated populace that can do research, read proposed legislation, and then be able to make an informed choice. Do you really think the people elected in office wants that? Absolutely not, especially certain segments, black of the population. So there's a whole other conversation to be had about that as well.
Well, that's another good point, and that's a point I actually agree with. You know, so we have some disagreements, but we have some overlapping agreements. I think this is why I think it's good for us to have this conversation. I actually went over time in talking to you because, well, this dialogue was really, really good. One of the things that I want to touch on next time, I would like to have you back on if you're willing to come back on.
Definitely.
But I would like to come back to talk about public safety as well as foreign policy, if we can have that conversation as well. Because I think that there may be some disagreement, there may be some agreement, but I would like to get your thoughts on that there as well. But in the interim, as far as your campaign's going, you know, when it comes to fundraising, getting volunteers, things like that, what is necessary for you and your campaign in order to gain more ground in your district?
Well, you know, first of all, when it comes to money, I'm never going to have enough, and never. So whatever people can donate, that's great. And I'm never going to be able to match or even get anywhere close to what Clyburn has, but whatever people could donate, that's great. What really wins a campaign is ultimately what you do on the ground. And this time around, I'm doing a lot more. My team has contacted, mainly text messages, but there's been phone calls as well, 35 to 36,000 people. It's a little unnerving knowing that many people have seen my face on their phone or heard people speak with them about me. But, you know, and I do get recognized in Publix. Like I went to Charleston, I just went to eat, and then it turned into a campaign event. I did not expect that, but it happens more and more now. Also, my volunteers, these are volunteers I don't have, like most true grassroots candidates, I don't have the machine behind me. So my volunteers have sent out 10,000 flyers. Couldn't afford mailers, so I did flyers. And I've had people with whom I work say, hey, I got one of your little things in the mail. Had the mail lady say, hey, I got one of your little things in the mail. I said, yeah, you probably delivered it for other people and didn't recognize it. So volunteers to help me do that, that's what ultimately works, helping to get the word out about my campaign. You know, I'm doing all I can do, but I don't have the donations coming in to where I can take a hiatus from work and just campaign around the clock. When you are a true grassroots candidate, you're not going to have that. So I definitely do what I can with text banking, phone banking, and helping to recruit volunteers who help me get the word out. And another thing I do is coming on platforms like this. You know, of course, you don't win a campaign necessarily on social media, but you do help get the word out. And it's good to speak with people, even when people disagree with me. As a matter of fact, I prefer to speak with a person who disagrees with me. So that's way I'm able to explain my platform and my viewpoint on a matter. And it really helps to educate people. So many people live in silos and live in their own echo chambers that they never hear another side. And you cannot grow that way. All you're going to have is what we have now, this very polarized America. And I'm not one of those people, oh, we all need to come together. No, I don't believe in it. There are some people I never want to unite with. However, I do feel we need to get back to the point in having intellectual discourse.
Yeah. Yep, intellectual discourse. This is what a lot of our people of back in the day, especially during the civil rights era, that was a lot of intellectual discourse, and that's something that I'm trying to get back to. I'm trying to bring back into popularity. So I just really want to thank you for coming on and having this discussion with me, you know, and being patient with me as I, you know, try to get through this, because you know, I am still new at this. I'm, you know, even though I'm technically 3 years into this, I'm still consider myself new. And it, you know, it's very humbling, and it's a privilege to have you on to be able to talk about this. And, you know, I saw you run before, and I, you know, once I heard about you leaving the Democratic Party, I said, he left the duopoly, which was very interesting. And I was just like, let me have him on and let me have this discussion. So,
well, James, thank you for having me. And don't be ashamed. I'm still very new at this. Here's the thing. I embrace my newness. When people think they can ask me a gotcha question, you cannot, not saying you, but I'm just saying to any person out there, you cannot humiliate me. You cannot, quote unquote, make me look stupid. Because when I entered politics, I knew that I was not as well versed, as well researched, as a person as experienced as Congressman Clyburn. I knew that. And yet I said to myself, Congressman Clyburn has been in office now going on 32 years, and yet his district is the 6th poorest district in the United States of America out of 435. So if that is where experience gets you, if that is where being well researched gets you, having the 6th poorest district, then I'm going to take a chance on me not being as well researched. So I embrace the fact that I'm new to this. I embrace the fact that I am still really an elementary, middle school teacher who entered not always because he always knows what's right, but because he truly wants to do what's right, even if it's not popular, even if it's not easy. I'm always going to take the initiative to educate myself, which is why I love having dialogues such as these, which is why I'm always doing research. Is why I'm humble enough to say I don't have those details, but I will consult with others to help develop a plan. But I embrace being new. I think we need more new people entering the realm of politics. I shudder every time people say you are a politician. I don't view myself as that. I do not view myself as a politician. I view myself as a regular, everyday American who got involved in politics. I think more of us need to do it, because simply organizing and shouting outside in the streets, and I do believe petitioning is very important. We have a right to do that. However, we can organize outside. At the end of the day, the people inside are going to make the final decision. And I think more of us need to be those people. So thank you so much for having me, James.
Yeah, thank you so very much. And we can let people know, where can they find you?
MarcelForCongress.com. It's MARCEL. I'm going backwards. forcongress.com. You can find me there. You can find my platform there. And I always say to people, you may not agree with everything that I say, and that's okay. That's absolutely perfectly okay. I mean, I agree with everything you feel, but having that intellectual discourse is extremely important.
All right. Thank you so very much, Marcel Dixon, everybody. You have yourself a wonderful day, and thank you so very much.
Thank you. You as well.
All right. Bye-bye. All right, folks. So that was a very interesting conversation. I wanted to talk about more, but at the same time, I was like, I promised him 45 minutes, and we went double that time. So I apologize to Marcel Dixon for that. But this was a necessary conversation to have. And yeah, so hopefully I can have him back on in the near future before November. Talk about some of the wins and some other different issues that I would like to discuss with him on. But yes, so somebody who's running outside of duopoly, as anybody knows that I'm one of those people who I say focus, 5 to 10% on electoral politics. The other 90% do work on the ground. And so this is just one of those 5 to 10% moments where if you truly believe in electoral politics, leave the duopoly. The Democratic and Republican parties are not going to do a thing for you. It hasn't done a thing for us. It hasn't done a thing for anybody else. And a lot of times people will say, well, look at all these particular things that they've done in the past. And it's like, yeah, they did some of these things in the past that were beneficial for smaller subsets. Or if they did do big things in the past, it was great. But at the same time, number one, it didn't go far enough. And number two, those same parties also end up cutting back or doing things what I like to call death by 1,000 cuts. Like, look, for instance, they're trying to cut back on Medicare. They're trying to cut away Social Security. And I'm talking about both parties. I'm not talking about just one particular party. And so really at this juncture, it really underserves, or it does not serve you at all to be involved with either Democratic or Republican parties. Get out now, because the thing is that ultimately they are really one and the same, right? Two cheeks on the same butt, and in the middle, all you get is so that's the way I feel. If you guys have not already, please make sure to like the stream. That pushes me out into the algorithm. Thank you so very much to everybody that's tuning in right now. And as well as, if you guys have not, you guys can go to jaybefaunt.substack.com. That alerts you to email notifications whenever I go live, upload clips, or write any articles. So we're going to go to the chat really quick and get the thoughts of everybody that's watching. So if you're watching from Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Rockfin, or Rumble, go ahead and give me your thoughts as well, because I would like to talk to you all as well. So I'm going to start off in Rockfin because I want to make sure that I do not miss anybody from Rockfin, because, well, I have missed in the past and I do not like to miss, because your thoughts are very important. What you guys have to say matters. So we're going to go to Rockfin really quick. Let me share my screen here. Man, I don't know what I put in that tea, but that tea got me wired today. Oh, well. Dave Burt coming in saying, love JBF. Oh, thank you so very much. And you're welcome for the show. I appreciate it. I appreciate you, Dave Burt. All right, let's get into the other parts of the chat. Y'all got some things to say. All right. Let's see here. Man, y'all are a wonderfully chatty bunch. My kind of people. All right, let's see. And please just let me know if you're new to the channel. Please let me know, like, how did you find me? Where did you come from? Things like that. We have Serena Sawyer coming in and saying, Greenie comrades, I'm so proud of the college students. On the other note, anyone see that picture of the mass casualty van thing that arrived around UT? Greg Abbott is a fascist. Oh, I didn't see that, but that last point, yeah, agreed. Let's continue on. We have CBC voters saying happy Tuesday at JB. Good to see you. We have Jacqueline coming in saying, hey, Jaybefaunt, Serena Sawyer, CBC voter. Thank you so very much. We have Bryce Smith coming in saying, morning, everyone. Sup, JB. Sup, Bryce? Good to see you, homie. Roger Meadow says, JB, tell Nick to fix the audio. Tune in real quick and hear the audio. Sorry. He says, killing the eardrums. Yikes. Uh-oh. Sorry about that. Trauma Queen says, love the gray black color palette, JB. Actually, this is like a taupe. It doesn't show very well on here, but yeah. It's a taupe. So thank you so very much, Drama Queen. Drama Queen's giving me some flowers right now. Let me sniff the flowers. Thank you so much. Drama Queen also says, love his hats. He always has good hats. Those are the kind of hats that keep you cool, man, in the summertime. I'm telling you, I'm in Florida. He's in South Carolina, baby. We know how hot it gets down here. Look, I'm this brown for a reason. I'm chocolate brown just like he is. And we need to stay out of the sun. By the way, y'all black people, wear some sunscreen, y'all. I know we don't necessarily get sunburned, but we still can get affected by the ultraviolet rays of the sun. So please make sure to take care of your skin. Take care of that melanin. It's beautiful on you. Take good care of it, right? Moisturize, exfoliate, and put on some sunscreen, all right? We got to keep y'all healthy. We love y'all. All right. So let's continue down. All right. We have Kia Grigor coming in saying hello to everybody that's in the chat. So good to see you in here as well. Everybody's so loving to each other. That's what I absolutely love. Zombie in the Air says Nick stream just died. Oh, no. Oh, I'm so sorry. Yikes. I hope he records it too, because that would be great. But you never know. Things like this, technical difficulties and all that. Terry Connolly says, like, share, subscribe. Yes, please. Like, share, subscribe. What are you doing? What you waiting for? What the hell are you waiting for? All right. Whoever coming in saying facts. Good to see you, whoever. Yes, and I showed this earlier, but I think this is really important. Roger Meadow says Wall Street was created by the profits made from slavery. Absolutely. That's one of the reasons why Wall Street exists today. I think that's an important distinction to make. So Jacqueline says the British Empire would probably not have existed without coal for the steamships and slave labor, and millions of people all over the world wouldn't have suffered. Yeah, that's also very true. I think that we have to talk about that too. I want to get down to whoever says that's a fact, and I'd be homeless without what I might end up inheriting from my mom. Yeah. And we're talking about inheritance, yes. Eric Gray says, at the end of the day, substantive reparations will require revolutionary actions. And I wanted to ask him this, but I'm not sure exactly what his answer would be. But one of the things that I have been going over in my head, and like you all know, I am a staunch supporter of reparations for American descendants of slaves. I am, because I believe that is a debt owed. Just like I believe that real restitution is actually owed to indigenous Americans. Real restitution is owed to many people who are victims of imperialism, just like restitution is owed to us as the American descendants of slaves. I want to say this. I do believe that we will not get true reparations until post a revolution. Even though I want us to have reparations now, the reality, I think, is I don't think it's going to happen until we literally change the system from the ground up. Which is why I think we need to change the system from the ground up, so that, number one, we can give reparations for American descendants of slaves. Number two, so that everybody who's not an American descendant of slave can also have a much better system that actually props up their material conditions. But until then, until we actually rebuild this entire system anew. I don't see it happening, even though I want it to happen now. Does that make sense? You know, it's sad that it has to go to that point, but that's just how I see it predicted happening. Jayaki, I keep getting this name wrong. I'm sorry. It says smiling at the thumbnail for 10 seconds first. Oh, thank you so much. Let me see. Fatman TV says, just got here. I stand with Brother Dixon. Link to donate, please. I put the link in the chat as well. Bad Cookies. He just said that he actually is running in the third party now. So yeah, he's running third party now. So let me see. Political Bordello says Black socialists find ADOS to be a little different from divisive of the working class, their liberal identity brand of establishment politics. I am a Black communist that also believes in reparations. And I think that I think that reparations is actually a class policy, because if you believe in workers being able to get the surplus value from their labor, well, then the surplus value of their labor has not been paid back. Therefore, for American descendants of slaves, reparations is actually an important thing. So as a communist, I believe that reparations is actually an important thing that should happen within this country. While that is also being said, I also think that universal programs like a nationalized healthcare system is important. I believe that we should have universal school for grades 1 through graduate. I think that all education should be free of charge. And I think that we should be rebuilding our system of ecology, meaning we need to restore our environment to the way that the indigenous people had stewarded the environment before colonization came. So, with that being said, yeah, I'm a commie, but I also believe in reparations too. So, you know, for people who say that that's divisive, it's like, the system is divisive. So, yeah. Johnny Davis says, just saying that, gee, that's what's getting thrown in our faces. We're just another competitor in a sense that nothing has been taken, which is not true. Can you clarify just a little bit? Okay. So I'm going to be moving on. We're going to get to, and I'll look for that comment in a little bit, but we're going to get moving on to our next subject. But before we get into that, I just want to give a shout out to all the patrons on Patreon, Coffee, and PayPal. Thank you so very much to everybody that has essentially, been there and really been supportive of the channel. It means the world to me. And you guys have made this very possible. So I just want to thank all of you for really supporting the channel, because without you guys, I would not be able to do this type of work. You guys make this happen. You guys make this possible. So I just wanted to share the people who make this possible. Let me see. No. Wait, where is it? Oh, there we go. So thank you so much to all the patrons on Patreon, as well as on Coffee and PayPal. Without you guys, I would not be able to do this. I really need to update. This looks so ugly, but I want to make sure I get everybody. So thank you so very much to all of you. You guys make this happen. And just so that you guys know, yes, my channel is officially demonetized. So if you guys would like to, you guys can support the channel via Patreon and PayPal. And that will help me to be able to continue to do this work. So with that being said, I would like to share the tiers. So here are the tiers so that you guys know what is what. Hang on. Here are the tiers. All right, so let's take a share of that. All right, so we have JB members, Solidarity, Comrade, Jaybefaunters, Super Jaybefaunters, Super Duper Jaybefaunters, and Mega Jaybefaunters. And just want to give a shout out to new patrons that I said this the other day, but I want to make sure I do this on a live stream. Justin, Beth, and Andrea Rosario Gabori, thank you so very much for becoming new patrons. You guys are keeping the lights on, literally. Thank you. All right, so let's go into the next one. We're going into it. University of Florida. You have students fight against genocide. Free Palestine. Woo. So we are going to be talking about what's going on here in Florida. It's a doozy, folks. I think that this is going to be something that is coming to a head, especially what's going on, especially in Florida. Ron DeSantis made a statement the other day, and I really just want to share this first because Ron DeSantis does not believe in free speech. He says he does, but when push comes to shove, he does not. And here's an example of Ron DeSantis really not being the free speech advocate that he says he is. Let's take a look.
You think about what happened when you have these Hamas demonstrators out. They're taking.
First of all, hang on. Let's stop Ronnie Ron right there. All right. So Florida man says Hamas demonstrators. Where in the world do they say that they support Hamas? Where have you ever heard them chant anything about Hamas? Absolutely not. Now, when they are protesting the genocide going on in Gaza, when they say free Palestine, that has nothing to do with advocating for Hamas. So let's dispense with that there, because this is an example of a politician lying to you. Yes, lying. He's a politician. Mind you, I would not accept much from a guy that was involved in torture, allegedly, at Guantanamo Bay. I wouldn't listen to him. Because if he's willing to do crimes against humanity against people in Guantanamo Bay, not a good person. Not a good person to really listen to when it comes to things like this. Let's continue, because I just wanted to stop it there. All right.
Out. They're taking over bridges and they're taking over roads.
That is called civil disobedience. Oh my God, I can't even get through this. But that's called civil disobedience. So here's Ronnie having a problem with protesters committing civil disobedience. Would Ron DeSantis say the same thing about when civil rights leaders took over the Edmund Pettus Bridge? I think it was in Memphis. Was it Memphis? I get my cities and states wrong. I apologize. But the Edmund Pettus Bridge, aka Bloody Sunday, would he be the governor that actually sixed the police on them? Because they did civil disobedience. I thought that was free speech. Let's continue. Florida man got more to say.
And first of all, you don't have a right to do that. You have someone get stuck in traffic. How do you know if someone may need to get to a hospital? Someone may need.
They would be in an ambulance, most likely.
Need to pick up a child somewhere, and you're just going to commandeer the road because you have this ideological predilection. They tried to do that in Miami, and what happened? In 10 minutes, they got dragged off the road where they belonged, and we're not going to tolerate that. You look at
now, if it were something that he was for, like for instance, the mandates, and I'm not going to go even deeper into saying, the C word, but would he say the same thing about when people wanted to protest about mandates? See, it's always rules for thee, but not for me when it comes to people like Ron DeSantis. Right? Dear God. And while I'll say this, while I'm not necessarily in favor of mandates, right? I'm pointing out the hypocrisy between somebody like Ron DeSantis. And how does he feel about J6? When you had a whole bunch of, great value Peter Parkers climbing the walls of the Capitol. What does he say about that? You see, he wants to talk about them, but he don't want to talk about his, his comrades who decided to take a tour through the Capitol. Right? Oh Lord, Ronnie, what are we gonna do with you?
You look at these universities. When we have students who are doing things that, look, some of the stuff with the Hamas, I think is absurd that someone would go out and demonstrate on that. But
they're not demonstrating for Hamas. Ronald, get your facts straight. Dear God, who listens to this guy? Oh my gosh. Has he even talked to any of the protesters? No.
But, when you're chasing Jewish students around,
that is also false. That is not true. Ron is lying to you. In fact, a huge portion of those protesters are Jewish. They are Jewish, protesting the genocide going on in Gaza. Oh my Lord. If you listen to this, I'm trying not to cuss.
You're not letting a Jewish professor enter a building when you're targeting people like that. That's not free speech. That's harassment. That violates appropriate conduct. And
again, they're not protesting Jewish people. They're protesting a illegal occupation and a overwhelmingly aggressive, and horrible genocide that is going on in Gaza as we speak right now, simply because they don't like seeing people murdered and having their land taken away and an apartheid system being imposed upon them. That's exactly why they are protesting.
And yet at Columbia, at Yale, all these places, those folks rule the roost. They do.
If they rule the roost, then why in the hang on? Let me get bigger for a second. Hang on. Then why in the world are police in there being violent towards them? Ronald.
Whatever they want. And these administrators and the presidents of these universities are weak. They're scared and they don't do anything. You do that in Florida at our universities, we're showing you the door. You're going to be expelled when you're doing that stuff. And you know what? The minute people start to face consequences, you are not going to see this nonsense going on.
So when students want to camp out, they can't do it for that particular reason. They can't do it for the reasons of protesting the genocide. So if you're against students protesting the genocide, then Ronald, what does that make you pro? What does that make you? I'm going to share this because I think this is important, because there is a point that is made. Hang on. I want to share this because this is, be prepared to laugh, y'all. When Ron DeSantis says that, oh my God, they're chasing Jewish students off of campus, and he's making it seem like, oh my God, I can't believe this. They're so violent out there, and they're committing all this atrocities to people. And let me share you all this. This is from Hotspot. It says Karen has a breakdown because she stumbled across the Palestine protests at Northwestern while walking her dog. The protesters repeatedly tell her that she's fine and no one threatens her or blocking her way while she pleads with police, insisting she needs help. Let's take a listen to this.
Is not in.
Oh, remix. All right.
Is not in harm's way. Nobody is going to hurt them. Nobody is going to attack them. This person is not in harm's way.
They are free to leave.
Nobody is going to hurt them. Nobody is going to attack them. This person is not in harm's way.
Yes, they're right in front of me right now. They're putting signs in.
This person is not in harm's way.
I need funds, genocide. I need help. I know that, but they're surrounding me. They won't let me move. No, you are free to move. You are free to move. She is free to move.
You are free to move. You are free to move.
She's free to move. She's free to leave. She is free to leave. No one is surrounding her.
Nobody is surrounding you.
She is free to leave.
You are free to leave.
There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's Russian University. These are students. They're
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Students telling you that you're free to leave, ma'am. Free. Emphasis on the free, to walk away. And yet she's trying to make it sound like she's being held hostage by a bunch of students. Girl, if you don't get out of here with all that, and these are the people that Ron DeSantis are listening to. These are the people that Ron DeSantis say, oh my God, they're under threat. Here she is with her puppy in hand going, oh my God, I think, and she's not even in distress. She's just like, hi, yes, they're not allowing me to leave. Oh no, oh my gosh, I cannot believe this. I am in danger. I want to cuss so bad. I want to cuss. Because this lady is full of it. Full of it. And they're literally saying, ma'am, you're free to go. Who's blocking her path? Look back there. Look behind her. Who's blocking her? Look, I don't see nobody, baby, blocking her. And yet, I also find it funny that she's wearing an Adidas sweater. Weren't Adidas Nazis? Let's continue.
There's Russian universities or students. They're surrounding me. I can take a
She's free to leave. No one is surrounding her.
No one is surrounding her.
No one is surrounding her.
I'm just walking my dog. I need help.
She's free to leave.
I'm just walking my dog. I need help. I'm just walking my dog. I need help. Oh no. I'm just walking my dog. I need help. Help. Oh, the pain, the hiding. Oh, Jesus. Jeez Louise. Man, look, she can't even act like she's in trouble. She can't even act it right. At least give us a performance. Like, dear God, lady. Hell, your dog is doing a better job than you. Oh, I need help. Jesus, Lord, help me. And the award goes to...
I'm a Jewish American. I need help.
Oh, Lord, Lord.
Please come and help me. I'm wearing a white Adidas shirt. I have a dog with me. Okay, dog, I need help.
These are the people that Ron DeSantis is listening to. Meanwhile, a few months ago, you had 3 Palestinian students that were literally shot and nearly died. One is now paralyzed for the rest of his life because they're Palestinian. You had a little Palestinian Muslim boy that was stabbed to death 26 times in Chicago, right? You have students, particularly some Black students, that are standing in solidarity with Palestinians in colleges that are literally getting expelled, suspended, and getting doxxed for standing against genocide, and yet she's in danger. Wow. Wow. My God. She can't even give crocodile tears because she's, you know? And I'm not even going to play this because of what she says, but I'm going to let y'all read it, okay? This is from Alien from Space. Says, female Israeli supporter at UCLA wishes this word on students outside of UCLA in campus today. So, this lady, I'm not playing it because, well, I don't want to get a strike on the tube. But y'all read the word. So, that's just one example of what we're seeing on college campuses with people who are on the other side that are counter protests. There is this as well. And I'm setting all this up to share what is going on here in University of Florida. But this lady decided to go to a campus and try to ask the students who are protesting, and it didn't go the way she wanted it to. So let's go.
Do you mind if I interview? We've been seeing all over the news all the craziness that's happening on college campuses, especially at UCLA. So I decided to come here for myself. Do you mind if I interview?
I'm not going to talk to media.
Excuse me, do you guys want to tell me what's going on here? No, sorry.
I'm not letting any media in. You can, just so you know.
Okay, we were just standing outside, just trying to. Are we allowed to ask you guys a few questions about it? A lot of us just don't feel comfortable.
I can direct you to media liaison.
We're not gonna interview with you today. Not gonna engage with people that are gonna be pushing us.
Never seen anything like this in my life.
No, aren't allowed.
Talk to one of our media.
They won't speak to me. No one will speak to me.
There's a desk over there with media.
I've spoken to them. They won't speak to me.
Well, then you can try again.
I've tried, and this lady specifically is telling me I'm an agitator.
Don't engage with agitators.
I'm just trying to understand what you're protesting. For some reason, no one from your guys' team will let you guys speak, and I don't know why you guys can't speak to me. And like, this is so intimidating and scary for you guys to be standing here. I literally have walked around for the past 2 hours just asking peaceful questions like, what's going on here today? Why are you guys here? And no one can speak to me. And you guys are laughing. I don't understand how this is funny. I genuinely wanted to learn from you. And I wish we could have ended in a hug. That's actually what I hoped from this. That's my dream from all of this, that we could understand each other.
I think we need more barricade, guys.
Right there at the end, that was the part that sent me to the far plane. Like, we need more barricades, guys. Here's the thing, right? This lady is lacking self-awareness because the thing is that she automatically thinks that, well, she should be owed an answer from them, when in reality, they do not owe her an answer at all whatsoever. On top of it, you see how they stood there and they kept their mouth shut and they just said, like, no. I wish some of y'all at Columbia University did the same thing with AOC. I think you guys need to do same things with a lot of these politicians. If they have a D in front of their name, or even if there are people like Bernie Sanders, lock them out. Do not engage with them. Do not let them in. Do not get photo ops. No, absolutely not. For those of you who are in Columbia University, I think you guys can learn a lesson from this. When the way they treated this woman is the way you guys need to treat all the other politicians too. Unless they're ones that are actually trying to, advocate for ending the apartheid and ending the genocide, like some of these third-party candidates are. Okay, yeah, fine. But ones like AOC, who literally switched her no vote for the Iron Dome to not voting, or she voted present, then no, she does not get the opportunity to have dialogue with you. All right. And on top of that, she's supporting Joe Biden, who is funding this genocide in the first place. No, absolutely not. You do not allow people like her around. Same thing. People who are not honest actors like that lady. You shut them out. And then on top of it, she decided to discuss it as well, which I'm just like, really? She decided to come out and talk about it. Her name is Montana. Jeez Louise. And let's go into that really quick. Her name is Montana Tucker. Because, okay, so she was at UCLA. Here's what she says.
Hi, guys. So as you guys all know, since the 7th, I've been incredibly strong and fearless, honestly. And I've, went to Israel, and I've shown up at all the rallies and protests and post every day. And I'm not scared of anything. And I don't let anything get to me. And I'm strong for myself, for my family, for all of you. But today at UCLA really, really got to me. To see all these people being so brainwashed and really be like a cult. It was a full cult there. They're camping out. And when I ask them,
hang on. She says a cult. Yet a pro-Israel protester was wishing sexual assault on protesters that were protesting against genocide. Oh, and the people who are against genocides in a cult. Sure, Jen.
peacefully and nicely, why are they here and what are they protesting and what?
Ma'am, you already know why. There's no reason for you to wonder why they're out there, because they are peaceful and they are protesting and they've made the demands known. So therefore, to wonder why are you guys out there? You know why. So therefore, to ask that question, to go out there and ask that question, they put the answer out there to you. And also, they don't owe you an answer. Entitlement much?
Message they want to get out to the world. I was extremely kind and nice, and I took all of my Israel Jewish jewelry off and literally was just trying to learn and understand. They all sounded like robots, and they would just say, you have to talk to our media liaison. We won't speak to you. We don't speak to intruders. We don't speak to perpetrators. We don't speak to violators. Or I forgot the exact words that they kept calling me. I have it all.
Hang on. You know what she sounds like to me? She sounds like one of those dudes that's like, I'm a nice guy, so just because I'm a nice guy, that means I'm entitled to the attention of women. You're being nice just so that you can feel entitled to the attention of women, in fact, instead of actually being nice as an actual virtue. So you're being nice just because you feel like you're owed some attention or response from the people who are protesting. Like, no, you're not owed that. So stop it, because you're coming at it from an incel type of angle. Like, stop it, ma'am. Like, what are you doing? It's weird. Let's continue.
On film, and I literally was so nice, just trying to understand them and ask them why they are there, and they couldn't speak to me. And then finally they barricaded me. They had like 50 students come with their arms around each other, all fully covered and staring at me, and they wouldn't let me even walk by, even though it's public property, and they wouldn't even let me walk by. And I literally tried to have a conversation with them saying, I'm really trying to learn and understand, you guys, please tell me. They started barricading.
Look, if you want to learn Montana, look, there's Max Blumenthal, there's Abby Martin, there's Katie Halper, there's Norm Finkelstein, there's Miko Paled, right? You really want to learn, there are Jewish voices that you can literally listen to. Hell, if you want to go to somebody that's running for office, you got Dr. Jill Stein, right? You got Jeffrey Sachs, who just endorsed Dr. Jill Stein. You have so many people who are Jewish just like you, who you can actually learn from. But you weren't there for that. That's the point. You weren't there for that. You wanted to argue. It wasn't about we trying to find out what's going on. And there are plenty of people you could have asked. There are many resources that you could have went, but you didn't go to those resources. You decided to try to engage with them. Many people. There are countless independent media channels that have had these people on. Hell, I had Gaijin Girl on. She's a Jewish woman in New York, right? You could go to Lee Camp's channel. He's a Jewish guy that's against this apartheid and genocide. You can actually listen to Eleanor Goldfield on this. Noah Krejcevich. He's Jewish and against this genocide. There's so many people. And yet you're crying because they won't talk to you? I'm getting hot. Because it's annoying. She's making me itch. Oh my gosh. Anyway, let's continue.
Kidding me and
wouldn't let me. What? I'm done with her. Let's continue and let's share what's going on right now at University of Florida, because it's getting on my nerves. Plus, she's annoying me. I want to share. Let me see. I have it here. Let me see. What's going on in Florida? I have it over. Whoop. Sorry, guys, I had it. Man, I posted a lot over the weekend. All right, so I'll share it this way. All right, so let me share what's going on. Actually, let me share this really quick before I go into this. So when people talk about the anti-genocide protesters that are in solidarity with Palestine, this is what they consider to be violent to them. This is what they consider to be, against Jewish people, which I'm willing to bet that there's a bunch of Jewish people in that line right now. Let's take a look.
Study abroad programs where shootings are not.
Oh, I spotted a Jewish guy right there in the middle with the yarmulke on. So yes, there are Jewish people there. also protesting genocide. I'm gonna tell you right now, there are a lot of Jewish people protesting genocide. A lot. And they're doing it peacefully, and they are centering the voices of Palestinian people who are speaking out against it. And that is solidarity. That is love. And they're doing it in a very peaceful way. All right, let's continue.
Students are not treated the same.
Yeah.
Holding the line is effective. We have shown already that the study of
So that's going on there. Now, I want to share this that's going on in Florida, because they're doing some work on the ground right now. Okay. So I'll send you guys the link to this. It's their Instagram page. It's called the UF Divestment Coalition. So this is them. So they're doing legal defense and bail funds. And they're literally camping out and having a liberation zone there as well. So I want to share this because this is University of Florida Police Department and state troopers. So
KKK, IDF, they're all the same. KKK, IDF, they're all the same. UFPD, KKK, IDF, they're all the same. UFPD, KKK, IDF, they're all the same. UFPD, KKK, IDF, they're all the same.
Who are you protecting?
Shame.
Who are you protecting?
Shame.
okay, so it says, we are appalled by the University of Florida's response to peaceful protesters and occupiers in the Plaza of Americas this evening. After changing the rules and regulations several times over the last 2 days and being unable to cite university policy, University of Florida Police Department distributed a new and vague list of allowable activities to restrict our movement. So this is what's going on here. Trying to see if I can. No, I'm trying to scroll down if it'll allow me. It's not allowing me to scroll down. But this is what's going on, and they are literally camping out
Free Palestine.
in the University of Florida. And they are doing basically what's going on across the nation. It says, last night, university police intimidated students occupying the liberation zone by telling them they could not sleep or face arrest. We stand against police intimidation. Today, police have moved their definitions of regulations, trying to make legal occupation of the zone seem impossible. We know it's not. So that's what's going on. So that's what they're doing right now. And this is all going on in Gainesville as we speak, because that's where the University of Florida campus is. And so there was something that I wanted to share with you guys as well. Let me see if I can find it here, because there was a interesting point that was made by one of the University of Florida students that I think is necessary. Here it is. This wasn't University of Florida. This was University of Connecticut. I'm sorry. But it's interesting nonetheless. I want to share this because a lot of times, a lot of universities are okay with this, but when it comes to this subject, they're not. So this says University of Connecticut was fine with people camping for basketball, meaning that when it comes to camping out for things like basketball or any other sports activity, they're fine with that. But camping out to pressure their school to stop investing or to divest, as it were, from Israel is where they draw the line. So really it's, we care about free speech, but for only these particular issues. It's never across the board. And so as you can see, it's going on in UConn. It's going on in University of Florida, all over. And honestly, they just do not care. Now, let's go into how there were 9 protesters arrested also as well. So let me go to this article here. All right. Unless enlarged it. Continue to cite. This is out of the Gainesville Sun. All right, so 9 protesters arrested at pro-Palestinian demonstration on University of Florida campus. So it says 9 protesters were arrested by law enforcement Monday evening as pro-Palestinian demonstration continued on the Plaza of the Americas at the University of Florida. The detained protesters were walked over by a nearby Peabody Hall. As of 9 p.m., access to that building was blocked off by police. At least 20 officers were in that area. The officers were from the Gainesville Police Department, the University of Florida Police Department, and the Florida Highway Patrol. Protesters were yelling at police during the detainment process. The road between the Plaza of the Americas and the University Auditorium was blocked off by police. The center of the plaza, as of 8 p.m., still held about 75 protesters. Messages written in chalk on the sideway said, "It's not war, it's genocide, and UF divest now." Protesters have gathered at the Plaza since Wednesday. They have complained that the University of Florida has enacted unfair rules and restrictions. University of Florida told The Sun last week that while peaceful protests were constitutionally protected, camping, putting up structures, disruptive academic activity, or threatening others on university property is strictly prohibited. University of Florida also said that the rules being enforced have been placed in place for years. Monday night, University of Florida spokesman Steve Orlando issued another statement. "This is not complicated. The University of Florida is not a daycare, and we do not treat protesters like children. They knew the rules, they broke the rules, and they'll face consequences. For many days, we have patiently told protesters, many of whom are outside agitators, that they were able to exercise their right to free speech and free assembly." Says we also told them that clearly prohibited activities were the results of trespassing order from UPD, barring them from all university properties for 3 years and an interim suspension from the university. For days, UPD patiently and consistently reiterated the rules. Today, the individuals who refused to comply were arrested after UPD gave multiple warnings and multiple opportunities to comply. Says the group of protesters gathered just before 9 p.m. in front of the police station outside Peabody Hall. Chants include "Let Them Go" and UFPD, KKK, IDF. They are all the same. Says at the same time, protesters were seemingly unaware that the 9 people detained were chained together and being loaded into an Alachua County Sheriff's Office van parked in front of Cruiser Hall. The van left campus at about 9:08 p.m. Alachua County Jail records show 9 people between the ages of 20 and 26 were booked Monday night between 10:16 and 11:12 p.m. Various charges include failure to obey police, resisting arrest without violence, wearing a hood or mask on public property. Hang on. Wearing a hood or mask on public property. Let me ask you a question. Since when is that actually a crime? I mean, people want to protect themselves, especially since we just got through, we're still enduring the remainder of a pandemic. So, I mean, why is wearing a mask on public property, why is that a crime? Isn't it a free country, especially on public property? Let's continue. And it said trespassing and felony battery. It says the battery charges were filed against a student who spit on University of Florida police officer who was helping an FHP trooper escort another arrestee, according to arrest report. I'm having some doubts about that one. It says on Tuesday, Fresh Take Florida reported that the 8 of the 9 people arrested had been released from jail. The protester charged with battery is being held. Bail is set at $5,000. State Rep Yvonne Henson posted on Facebook that law enforcement should stand down and allow those involved to exercise their constitutional right to peaceful assembly and protest. Quote, I wholeheartedly condemn the actions taken by law enforcement at the University of Florida, which serve to suppress the free expression of the students and may chill future peaceful demonstrations. All groups have the same right. So, that is basically what happened there. Now, as far as any students that are essentially that are being prevented, that are held, on bail, here is something I shared on Twitter, and I'll share here. So it says 9 pro-Palestine anti-genocide protesters arrested, bail money needed, and it gives the link tree. I will give you guys the link tree if you would like to donate to their bail funds. I think that's important because, to be honest with you, free speech should not be paywalled. And so I have that there. So you guys can go to there and assist them. But yes, unfortunately, that's what we have going on right now, is that they are protesting a genocide and they are basically being punished for protesting genocide. Let's go to this article too. All right. So let's enlarge this. So I want y'all to see. It says campus protesters call on University of Florida to divest from Israeli war interests. So University of Florida students gathered on the Plaza of Americas Wednesday to support the Palestinian people and urged the University of Florida to divest from Israeli war interests. The protest was promoted by the UF divestment. The protest was promoted by the UF Divestment Coalition and lasted approximately 8 hours, during which faculty and students delivered speeches. So faculty were involved. A counter protest of students in support of Israel occurred at the same time. The University of Florida Police Department separated the two groups. Now, This right here says a protester reads the names of slain Palestinians during the student demonstration, calling for the divestment of U.S. student funds to weapons manufacturers concerning Israeli-Palestinian conflict on Wednesday, April 24th. So thousands and thousands of names. Okay. So let's continue. And it's just showing the pictures from protesters and counter protests. So I'm hoping that these students will have more success. Of course, you have a governor that is anti-free speech like Ron DeSantis. He's no different than Greg Abbott. I'm hoping that this does not go the way of Kent State, because Kent State was also an anti-war protest that resulted in the murder of 4 students, 3 of whom were Jewish. There is a massive amount of Jewish students and faculty that are also protesting this genocide. And so really it should be without saying that I hope the pressure is on the schools and the governors to allow the protests to be peaceful. And by allowing them to be peaceful, meaning you get the people who are the most trigger happy to stay back. And by that, I mean the police, because they're the ones that caused the violence to start in the first place. These students were doing all fine, by just doing their peaceful occupation, right? But then the police show up, and the next thing you know, things turn hairy. Why? Because the police are the ones that escalate the violence. And it happens time and time again. Any wonder why I always say defund the police, right? So what we see is all this that's happening, and DeSantis wants to essentially crack down on this, but the University of Florida students are saying, nah, bud. And this is why I think it's important for this to grow. You have Emory University, USC, Columbia, University of Michigan. You have so many different colleges that are now starting to say, you know what, we're joining in on this. I want to see HBCUs join into this fight. If you're in an HBCU, I don't care if it's FAMU, Bethune-Cookman, Howard. They're doing stuff at Howard now. Don't sleep on Howard. They're doing it. They're trying to do stuff at Howard, I think. Spelman, I want to see. Morehouse, I want to see all of y'all. Look, because no doubt that a lot of HBCUs also have partnerships with the Department of Defense. I would like to see you guys also demand a divestment as well. Because ultimately, especially those of y'all at HBCUs, who trains the police that are bashing your heads in? Is it not the IDF that trains our police to bash our heads in? And yet, you're going to stand by and allow them to basically muffle and take away your right to free speech and to divest away from what they're doing to Palestinian people. In turn, they're using those same tactics against us. So those of you who are at HBCUs, I also encourage you as well to encourage HBCUs to divest. If there's any type of investment with Israel, it needs to stop. Remember the way of South Africa. What happened with apartheid South Africa? Why did the apartheid end? Because they did divestment sanctions and they boycotted. This is what needs to happen with Israel. Because if Israel can stand on its own, all right, then they can do it without having the investments. What they can do it while being boycotted. Because we should not be standing with a foreign government that's committing these atrocities. Everybody wants to stand against governments that are doing atrocious things to other people except for Israel. Why is that? It should stop. It needs to stop. And that's why I played that clip from Dr. Ruha Benjamin, where she said that black faces in high places won't save us. Yeah. I think it's important for that as well. Let me share this as well. Just to help out these freedom fighters. Says urgent funds needed, legal defense and bail. So it talks again about the 9 pro-Palestinian protesters that were arrested. So of course they need legal defense. If you know of any attorneys that can assist with them with this, especially if you can do pro bono, I think that is also important, because really this is about securing their free speech. So it says, update: police across the state are violently suppressing encampments. Encampments have emerged on Florida's campuses in opposition to university complicity in genocide. Instead of listening to their students, University of Florida and University of South Florida have incited police to violently arrest 12 students so far. So today at 8:30 a.m., they gathered at Alachua Courthouse. At 5 p.m., which is in about 20 minutes, Florida FJP march at University 13th. Tonight at 9 p.m., Eastern Orthodox candlelight prayer. So they're doing that. So this is Jewish Voices for Peace. Is also involved in this. So if anybody says, oh my God, they're threatening Jewish people or they're doing all these horrible things to Jewish people, not true, because Jewish people are literally involved in this. So make sure to bring that out. Let them know that a lot of these organizers are actually Jewish. A prayer is scheduled. So these are different prayers scheduled as well. So they're doing all this, and it's really Jewish people, Palestinian people, and everybody in between that are actually protesting this. So if you guys would like to, you guys can actually go there if you're here in Florida, especially in the Gainesville area. Wish I could, but I don't have transportation, number one. Number two, Gainesville is a ways from me. But it is very important that we stand with the oppressed. So let me share this link for you guys as well. And then if you guys want to, you guys can go and also try to assist them in any way you possibly can too. Let me go to the Rock then and also put the link there in the chat. All right. So, solidarity with those students. They are doing the damn thing out there. I am so proud of them. Keep fighting. And also on May 11th, that's going to be a Saturday, there's going to be a statewide protest all over Florida. I'm going to try to make it out there. And if you are in the state of Florida, I hope to see you out there, especially if you're in Orlando. So, yes, May 11th. This is going to be a Saturday. It's going to be a good day. Let's make it happen, Captain. So, with that being said, give me a like. That pushes me out into the algo. Thank you so very much for that. Let's go to the chat. We're going to start off in the Rock once again. That lady complaining about, oh my God, I cannot believe they're out here. I'm in danger. Oh, okay. Roger says this is when they were protesting RFK Jr. Okay. Hang on. All right, let me, if you, I'll share it. I'll share it, Roger. I'll share it. You got me. You got me. All right, so. It's still sideways, Roger.
Hey, what's going on? Hey, what's going on? Want an interview or something? What? Maybe. Who? Over there with the sign? Which guy with the sign? That way? That way, yeah. Him?
It's upside down now.
Okay. Hello, hello, hello.
Roger. It's upside down. Upside down. Oh no.
Hello, hello, hello. What's up? What's up? What's up?
Probably see it right side.
But there are those people out there that feel
It says, oh, so I can read upside down and backwards. It says support of Israel is not supporting Jews or Judaism. That's what the sign says.
without a Jewish state.
Yes, I know. I can read upside down and backwards. I know. Uh-oh. Wait, let's go back to that one for that sign for a second. Hang on. I want to see that. It says Judaism rejects Zionism and the state of Israel. That's what that says.
Hey, how's it going?
Thank God, thank God.
Can you? Oh, my name is Roger Meadows.
Hi.
I like to do these things, whatever.
Right, yeah.
So
Well,
can you?
Yeah, with God's help, we're basically here to clarify, to educate that Judaism is a religion, subservience to God, and Zionism in the state of Israel is antithetical to that. It's contradictory to that. It's a transformation from religion to nationalism. My religion, Judaism, is 3,000 years old, and this movement of the state of Israel, this nationalist movement of Zionism, is a mere 100-odd years, and it's totally forbidden according to our Torah what they are doing. To occupy, to kill, to steal, to oppress the Palestinian people is really unacceptable. It's a rebellion against God. It's not our religion, yet they are masquerading the state of Israel in Jewish name, Israel, and the Star of David, and using all the Jewish symbols in order to stifle any voice and that opposes what they're doing by accusing people of being anti-Semitic. And that's unacceptable. We want the world to know that the Zionist state of Israel has no right to speak in our name of our holy religion of Judaism. We want the world to know the distinct difference between what we are, our religion, and what Zionism, the state of Israel, is. We again, people, peaceful religion of being subservient to God. We cry and hurt with the Palestinian people and their suffering. We are humiliated beyond words to what is being done to the Palestinian people for well over 75 years now, and all with impunity in the name of our religion. This is really truly unacceptable. Unfortunately, the world seems to ignore the voice of the very religious Jews around the world who live in Palestine, who daily protest against this occupation. The words of our communities here, the very large Jewish communities that are living right here in New York, Williamsburg, Brooklyn, the largest concentration of religious Jews, where there's not one Israeli flag, we are all opposed to the existence of the state. We want the world to understand that. Unfortunately, here there's a gathering. They have Robert Kennedy is here to speak, and basically he says he's not anti-Semitic, and therefore he's trying to show support for the state of Israel. We want him to understand that that's not the route to take. The state, we appreciate people who want, have sympathy for Jews and want to help us. But the truth of sympathy for Jews would be with peaceful and speedy and total removal of the state of Israel, the dismantlement of this impediment to peace. Because we have been for hundreds of years living together, Jews and Muslims, even though we have a distinctly different religion in Palestine and throughout the Arab world. So the only reason that there is a rift and that there is bloodshed and ongoing upheaval is because of the existence of the state of Israel and the support that it is getting from the United States and so forth. This does not help the situation. It just exacerbates and continues this terrible Nakba, or the Arab school Nakba, this tragedy, this terrible, terrible, colossal tragedy.
I forgot to ask you your name. I'm sorry, sir.
Rabbi Yisrael David Weiss of the Neturei Character Jews United Against Zionism.
Okay, my name's Roger Meadows.
Nice.
What is your opinion of this guy, Rabbi Shmuley?
Oh, these guys are, again, these are people who use the name of Judaism, and they really have no right to speak in the name of our religion. They use sensationalism and all different aspects of and attempts to really to justify crime. They may be popular, they may be very charismatic, but they're not speaking in the name of my religion. They are totally, really contradictory with a message to our religion. And in many issues, they happen to be not jiving with the Jewish religion. But this is, of course, a case in point. The concept of supporting Israel is a direct rebellion against Jewish religion, against God.
Okay. I'm going to put this on social media so your voice can be heard. Hopefully they don't ban my account for telling the truth. You know how social media get down when you go against the narrative, but we'll see what happens.
Great. Thank God.
Oh, got something for me? All right, thanks. All right. What's that?
You have a business contest?
Oh.
Well, thanks for that, Roger. Appreciate it. And yes, that is further proof that there are a lot of Jewish people who stand against genocide. from what I've observed, Judaism is actually a very peaceful religion. And the Jews that are against the Zionism are the ones that are really standing for peace and for liberation for people who are oppressed. So I missed it last week, but you know, I hope all of our Jewish friends have had a beautiful and happy Passover. So just wanted to give my love to all of our Jewish friends out there as well. You guys are doing the damn thing out there. You guys have my respect. So let's go to the rest of the chat. Thank you very much for that, Roger. Appreciate it. Oh, okay. I wanted to address this really quick too. Katie Lewis says, who's also a friend to the channel, says, I love to see it, but HBCUs have successfully become Black capitalist and imperialist factories with a shade of Black cultural appreciation. Yeah. But that's one of the reasons why I said what I said earlier, because I want to at least, if there's anybody that is a HBCU alum or HBCU student right now that may come across this channel, that may come across what I may say, I hope that this also puts a fire under them to, you know, to stand with the oppressed, you know, even if, you know, their school may not be at this point in time. So it can't hurt to try, right? So yeah, thanks a lot for that, Katie Lewis. It's good to see you in the chat too. I love it, Eric. I love it. See, this is why I love you, Eric. It says, thou shalt not steal, right? Right? Thou shalt not steal. What in the world? Look, isn't that in the Torah? Right? The gentleman that we just saw, the Orthodox Jew, he follows that. Why not Netanyahu? Why not Ben Gvir? Why not Shmuley Botiach? Why not them? Why not Theodore Herzl? Why not David Ben Gurion? See? Let me continue. Whoever says, I think they know, but they want to continue to try to make less informed people think that it's the protesters against all Jews. It's a Zeo tactic. Yes. So that's one of the things. They're trying to make it seem like it's an anti-Semitic movement. This is why groups like If Not Now, as well as Jewish Voices for Peace and other anti-Zionist Jewish groups are so important, because what they're doing is saying, look, we're Jewish and we're also against this. And I think this is the importance of why they're in the fight. I liken it to this. It is just like when you have a lot of white people that are also fighting for Black liberation, that's trying to help us, and they literally put their bodies on the line in order to fight for our liberation, right? Because they may not be the victims, but they're using their privilege in order to fight for justice. This is why that lady named Montana, this is why her crocodile tears couldn't work, because you had other white women that were Jewish that were in that crowd that said, we see right through you. You're not getting an inch on us. That's what it is. When you have a privilege and you use it for the benefit of the disenfranchised, then that's when you're doing the good work. This is why when you have men like us who speak out and also try to defend the rights of women, guess what? You're doing the good work. And you're not centering yourselves, you're uplifting and amplifying their voice. You're doing the good work. This is why those of us that may be cisgender, when we advocate for the people who may be trans, guess what? We're doing the good work. When you are somebody of affluence or PMC, but you're uniting with those of us who are working class and poor, in order for us to have our material conditions improved and equalized and equitable, then you're also doing the good work, right? When you have a privilege and you're using it to bring equality and equity to the fore, you're doing the good work. This is why it's so important that even like when we had on Marcel Dixon earlier, that white people get involved and start advocating for reparations too. This is why if you are Jewish and you know what's going on in Palestine is wrong, if you know what's going on in Gaza is wrong, it is also necessary for you to speak out. I have literally lost friends over this issue because they do not want to listen to the voices of the oppressed. Or they think they're listening to the voices of the oppressed because that's how Zionism works. They will cast themselves as, oh my God, I'm oppressed, while doing the oppressing. And Zionism is a political ideology. It is not a religion. It is not Judaism. Judaism, religion of peace, religion of acceptance for the most part. You know, you have different sectors of Judaism, just like you have different sectors of Christianity too. But that's the thing. A lot of people need to get that through to their heads. Zionism is not. Separating Zionism from Judaism is just like separating Christianity from Christian nationalism. Does it make sense to you now? Hope it does. Okay, yeah, I got it, Roger. All right, thank you so very much. Oh, wait. Wait, did you put up another one? No, you didn't put up another one. Was that the video that you said? Bonus video on Rock J. Interviewed head guy from JPP outside of RFK July event where they were escorting Blue Moon Lucy out for asking RFK why he teamed up with Shmuley Mossad faction that killed his uncle. I don't see that on Rockman. Or was that the video that you just showed me? Anyway. Let's continue. You said watch it anyway. Okay, Raj. Okay. Hang on. Colin said outside agitator is code for black or uppity white. Yeah. Wadi says so corporations buying ads is speech, but people putting up tents in the real world to protest the real genocide isn't. Oh, yup. There you go, Wadi. Oh, Retro Gamer says I'm no longer going to watch Rob Schneider movies because he's pro-Israel. I'm not watching Rob Schneider movies because they suck. And the fact that he's pro-Israel, yeah. But yeah. I mean, you know. But there's no ethical consumption in capitalism. You do the best you can with what you got. Bryce Smith, JB, yep, some people are scared of the Rona still. Yeah. And I gotta be careful because I'm immunocompromised, so I still have to be careful. So those of us who are disabled, we still have to be careful, you know, and keep in mind, you know, people who may be immunocompromised around you to try to be, you know, kind of protective and considerate of them too, you know. Javier says, weren't masks mandated a couple of years ago? Not in Florida. You see, Jacqueline said, don't the authorities at Columbia University worry that these draconian measures will draw more publicity and public sympathy for the anti-genocide protesters? They should be, but at the same time, they're going to shoot themselves in the foot because it's within them to try to quell it, because it's ultimately in line with trying to prop up the powers that be, because Zionism is really a tool of the corporations to keep a attack dog in the Middle East, so that the countries in Western Asia do not get any ideas of giving more power to the workers. Ultimately, that's what it's about. So that's why they do not want anyone to rise up against Zionism, because Zionism is really just a tool of the West used to be able to keep these Western Asian countries in check. It's not really because they actually care about Jewish people. They don't care about Jewish people. They could care less. If Western countries like the United States actually cared about Jewish people, they wouldn't be giving billions of dollars to Nazis in Ukraine. They don't care about Jewish people. They don't. If they cared about Jewish people, they would have cared about the Jewish Palestinians that they slain in Gaza. But they don't care about them either. True story. Yes, whoever says, oh my God, I would cry through that entire list of names, same. Yes, Chris C says, I would love to see Florida A&M. Me too, Chris. Me too. Let me see. Natalie Williams says, all these acronyms throw me too. Yeah. Acronyms, M&Ms. Sardina says, I'm very slowly getting him to understand that Israel ain't the shiny holy land place we were taught growing up. Unfortunately, his fiance is a history teacher who believes the mass R-word hoax. Yeah, you gotta just share that, articles where they do not confirm this. You just share the articles wherever you can. And I'm going to do maybe like 2 more because I got to get going. Sebastiano, thank you so very much for the love. Let me see. Oh, Joseph Bett says, thou shalt not kill too. Mm-hmm. Emperor Penguin, we love you, JB. Aw, Emperor, come on, man. Don't do that to... Oh, sorry, I don't know your gender. But come on, fam. Don't make me cry. Don't make my ears, not my ears, but don't make my eyes sweat. My eyes start sweating. Next thing you know, I'm gonna need the Kleenex. Oh my gosh. Trying to get to people who I haven't spoken to yet. Oh, Roger says Jay asked Mad Crab for Vito Lucy yelling at RK and the other guy who spoke against Shmuley, who told him, I'm Jewish too, mother effer, a true New Yorker. I think he's Green Party guy. Interesting. Okay. That would be interesting. All right. Joseph Bett, one more says, if the U.S. or Britain cared about Jews, why didn't either nation give them asylum during the Holocaust? The U.S. already knew about it before 1945. That's also true. They could have. And in fact, Germany should have given part of that land to Jews, to Jewish people who have suffered during the Holocaust. That could have been part of their reparations, to give the Jewish people land for themselves. I'm just saying. That could have been part of the compensation. They didn't. So, with that being said, I saw one comment that I was trying to get to, but I'm out of time. I'm way over time right now, and I do not want. That means I'm gonna have to do a lot of editing, and I don't like editing at all. Man, I wish I had a producer, but I can't pay one. And if I can't pay a producer, I'm not gonna have one. And by pay, meaning if I'm gonna have a producer, I'm gonna pay them a living wage. I am not underpaying nobody. No, I wouldn't want nobody to do that to me, and I sure as hell ain't doing that to nobody else. Good to see you, Sean Miller. I saw you. Oh my gosh. And Zombie in the Air says, sorry, her dog has such a garbage owner. Yeah. Unfortunately. Oh well. Anywho. I'm headed out because I gotta go. And I'm hungry. Wait, did I eat today? No, all I had was a smoothie. So I gotta get going. But who do I have coming on next week? Hang on. Let me take a look here. Let me take a look-see, because I can't remember. Look, guys, I'm getting old. Tomorrow's May. It's gonna be May. I'll be 40 next month. No, not next month, but the month after. So it's going to be interesting. Oh, yeah. So May 2nd. I will be live at 2 p.m. this Thursday. I will have Matthew Ho on. If you remember Matthew Ho, he was the Green Party candidate for senator in North Carolina. So I'll be having him on. There's some latest developments with him. I'll be having on Matthew Ho. So be sure to tune in for that. That's going to be an interesting conversation. We had to reschedule from last week, so I cannot wait to have him back on. And then also this Thursday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern, be sure to tune in to Lee Camp. I will be on Lee Camp show this Thursday at 3:30 Eastern Standard Time. So I cannot wait to be on there to talk to Lee Camp. It's been a while since we had a conversation, but I cannot wait because Lee Camp is always a great guy to talk to. If you guys have not, you guys also need to subscribe to his channel. He's also coming at it from a anti-Zionist Jewish perspective. It's great to talk to Lee Camp as well. And then next week on the 7th, I will have on Ron Placone. He'll be joining me on this channel. He'll be returning. I cannot wait to talk to Ron. Ron is always a good time. We're going to be talking as well. So yeah, guys, it's going to be a great next week. So I cannot wait to have him back on. Now, just to let you guys know, again, if you guys would like to help out with the University of Florida students, I put the link in the chat as well. You guys have that there so that you guys can assist them in any way you possibly can. And it's the Time Join the Morning Show. Here you go. I'll be reading Continuing in the World of Change, Men, Masculinity, and Love by Bell Hooks. We're going to continue in that. Also, of water and the spirit. Ritual magic in the initiation in the life of the African shaman. Yes, by Melodroma Patrice Sommet. We will be talking about it. There. He is from Burkina Faso in Africa. Yes. Sorry, that was my general African accent. I am a third Nigerian now, you know. I am a third Nigerian. Yes. I love it. I love it. I big. I love it. All right. So, anywho, in addition to, and furthermore, thank you to all the patrons on Patreon and Coffee, and anybody that sends me anything through PayPal. Yes, I am still dealing. Oh, somebody asked earlier if I'm still dealing with the housing situation. Yes, I am. So if you guys would like to assist in that, you guys can donate through PayPal. Still dealing with that. So still haven't found a place. Still looking. Have to be out essentially in 30 days. So that is what's going on right now. And if you guys would like to assist, anything helps. Even just becoming a patron on Patreon also helps too. Oh, I'm sorry, Natalie. Let me go in here to Rumble. I'm sorry. I forget about Rumble sometimes, and that is my fault. I know they did it. I know we have it on RBN, but I forgot how to link Rumble so that the chats from Rumble show up on StreamYard. So I gotta look into how to do that. But yes, actually, this might be my first Rumble rant ever. Hang on. Hang on. If I got a Rumble rant, I can't see it. Natalie, if you repeat it on here, you don't have to give me a super chat. Just repeat it on here and I'll see it. Hang on. Let me. Yeah, because I know Dissidence does it, and I know they set it up on. Hang on. Felonious Punk says, thanks for the truth, power. Thank you so very much. Alan Dubner. Dubmer. Sorry. Great show. My relatives went through New York. I forgot what it's called. We're from Poland, Russia. Please schedule a reminder on YouTube. Oh. I'm an anti-Zionist Jew. Free Palestine. Ooh, nice to meet you. All right. And then Felonious Punk says, beautiful truth. Thank you so very much. I don't see any Rumble rants, though. Ah, man. Hang on. I don't know. Huh. That stinks. I'm sorry. Sorry. I don't see Rumble rants here. Wish I had some help with that. See, this is why I Natalie Williams says, do you have Cash App account? I do. Let me put that in here. Let me see. Yeah. I'll share the screen and also share the link. I'll put it in Rumble too. Sorry about that, Natalie. Thank you for catching me before I left. I would have felt so bad. Oh my gosh. All right. I'll put it in here and I'll put it on Rumble too. All right. So there you go. And anything helps. I appreciate it. Thank you so very much. Eric says, yeah, Rumble doesn't let you scroll back very much. Oh, okay. Okay. All right. I got you. Okay. Thank you so very much. Appreciate it. And thanks for the technical side, Eric. Appreciate that. Yeah, the problem is that with Rumble, it's kind of hard to go back. I don't know how to do it. I'm not very versed on Rumble, but plus I need to link the chats to here. So my apologies. I'm gonna try to see about linking that once I'm done. So I appreciate you guys keeping me holding my feet to the fire on that one. But thank you. Chima says, when's the next live stream? Yeah, it's going to be this Thursday at 2 p.m. So, yeah. And yes, Roger, I hear you. I'll let you know. All right. So, let me get ahead and get out of here. I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to eat. But, look, like I always say, water your plants, water yourselves, leave the world better than you found it. Smoke them if you got them, drink them if you got them. If you ain't got them, then watch something funny because joy is revolutionary. And also support the people who are the most disenfranchised among you. And then that also includes reparations too. I mean, and a lot of time, and it don't look, don't be like, oh my God, we're going to go bankrupt if we pay for reparations. We haven't gone bankrupt by giving money to Ukraine and Israel. So reparations to us is not going to bankrupt this, and it's not going to have a direct effect on you. Look, you random white person that is, or random person that's not an American descendant of slave, it's not going to affect you in a negative way. In fact, just to let you know, economically, it's just going to be like, if we get money, then guess what? You're going to get money, because when we get the money, we're going to end up spending it. Let's be real. So yes, it will affect you in a positive way, however. So let's be honest. And it's fair. Let's be real. It is fair. So support people who are disenfranchised, you know, and continue to, you know, not only support them in rhetoric, but also in deed as well. Also, stand together with those who are protesting against genocide. Continuously support them. And if you are near a college campus, maybe you can drop by a case of water, or maybe you can drop by. Are you good at baking pies or cookies? Or do you have maybe a generator that they can use? Maybe you have some charged up power packs for them for their phones and electronic devices. Maybe, just maybe, you may have an extra tent that might be able to be used. Maybe you can buy some muffins, or maybe some lunch meat, some cheese, some bread, right? Maybe you have an extra cooler. Go by, get some ice, fill it up. Just give them a cooler full of ice. You know, there's ways you can support. You know, if you don't have the cash, maybe you can make some mac and cheese. Make some baked mac and cheese. You know what I'm saying? Who knows? But support people, you know, when they're doing actions that are trying to help liberate people. All right. And yeah, so with that, forehead kisses to all y'all, because why? That's just how I roll. See you later, alligator. That's for y'all in University of Florida. Thank you so very much for watching my channel, and I deeply appreciate it from the top and bottom of my heart. If you wish to support the channel further, so I can keep bringing you content that is educational and informative, you can become a patron on patreon.com/Jaybefaunt. You can find that link in the pinned comment or in the description below. No matter what you give, you'll be supporting independent media and education that helps make the world better. Thank you so much, and you can watch more of my content here. Forehead kisses, and have a beautiful day.